When a father chose his dying daughter over millions, he lost everything in seconds. But what happened next would change them both forever. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. And if it moves you, hit that like button. Now, let me tell you about the night Lucas Bennett's entire world collapsed. The emergency alert screamed through Lucas Bennett's laptop at 4:17 a.m., shattering what little remained of the quiet. He jerked awake in the worn armchair, neck stiff, his body protesting 3 consecutive nights of barely any sleep. The Denver rental was an icebox. The landlord's ancient heating system wheezed somewhere in the walls, but delivered nothing, and outside snow fell in thick, relentless sheets that had already buried his car and half the street. The alert wouldn't stop. Red text flooded his screen, accompanied by that piercing tone designed to jolt engineers into crisis mode. Lucas rubbed his face hard, trying to clear the fog, then squinted at the cascading error messages. The system. His system. The one he'd architected from scratch. The one running critical infrastructure for a company valued at over $200 million. The one that absolutely could not fail. It was failing. No. He launched the diagnostic suite with fingers that moved on muscle memory alone. Lines of code scrolled past. Server logs. Database queries timing out. The authentication layer was rejecting valid credentials. The backup protocols weren't triggering. Everything he'd built, every safeguard, every redundancy, was collapsing in real time like a house of cards in a windstorm. His phone buzzed. Then again. Then it started ringing. Lucas silenced it without looking. He knew who it was. The operations team. The night shift manager. Probably his direct supervisor by now. In another few minutes, it would be the VP of engineering. In an hour, maybe less, it would be the board. They'd all want the same thing, for him to fix this immediately, because he was the only one who could. 3 years. He'd given them 3 years of his life, often 16-hour days, weekends swallowed whole, holidays reduced to him working from whatever corner he could find while his daughter played alone or watched television. He'd told himself it was necessary. After Sarah died, after the funeral expenses and the medical bills and the sudden weight of being the only parent, the only income, the only anything, work became the answer to every problem. More hours meant more security. More security meant his daughter would be okay. Except she wasn't okay. From the bedroom down the hall came a sound that cut through every alert, every crisis, every line of failing code. A small, wet cough. Then another. Then a whimper so quiet he almost missed it. Lucas's hands stopped moving. He turned his head toward the hallway, toward the room where his 6-year-old daughter lay in a bed piled with every blanket he owned. The cough came again. Weaker this time, followed by a rattling breath that made his chest tighten. "Daddy?" Her voice was barely a whisper, thin and fragile as a paper. He pushed back from the desk, legs unsteady as he stood. The laptop kept screaming behind him. He ignored it. The hallway was dark and cold, his breath misting faintly in the air as he moved toward her room. When he pushed open the door, the sight hit him like a fist. Emma was curled on her side, small body trembling under the blankets. Her face glistened with sweat despite the freezing apartment. Her cheeks were flushed an angry red, her eyes half closed, glassy and unfocused. She'd kicked off the top blanket at some point, her thin pajamas damp against her skin. "Hey, sweetheart." Lucas crossed to her in 3 strides, kneeling beside the bed. He pressed the back of his hand to her forehead and swore under his breath. She was burning up, hotter than she'd been when he checked on her 2 hours ago. Hotter than any fever he'd ever felt. "My throat hurts," Emma whispered. "And my head, everything hurts." "I know, baby, I know." He smoothed her hair back, damp strands clinging to her forehead. "When did it get worse?" I don't know. I called for you, but you didn't come." The words landed like stones in his gut. He had been 15 feet away, headphones on, buried in code, while she suffered alone. Again. "I'm here now," he said, though the words felt hollow. "Let me get the thermometer." He found it in the bathroom, along with the children's fever reducer he'd been giving her since yesterday afternoon when this started. When he returned, Emma hadn't moved. Her breathing was shallow, quick, each exhale a soft wheeze that set off every parental alarm in his head. The thermometer beeped. 100, 4.3. Lucas's hand tightened around the device. That was too high. Way too high. He'd called the pediatrician's office yesterday, spoken to a nurse who'd said to monitor it, push fluids, alternate fever reducers. She'd said to bring Emma in if it went above 103. That was 12 hours ago, and he'd been too buried in work to check again until now. Okay, he said, forcing his voice to stay calm. We're going to get you some medicine, and then we're going to the hospital. I don't want to go. Emma's eyes filled with tears. I just want to sleep. I know you do, sweetheart, but we need to... His phone erupted again from the living room, the ringtone shrill and insistent. Lucas closed his eyes. The system, the company, the crisis that was costing them God knew how much money every minute it stayed down. Emma coughed again, harder this time, her whole body convulsing with the effort. When it subsided, she was gasping, eyes wide and frightened. The phone kept ringing. Lucas looked at his daughter, really looked at her, and something inside him cracked open. 3 years of justifications, of telling himself that working this hard was for her, that providing for her meant sacrificing time with her, that he was doing the right thing by climbing the ladder and securing their future. 3 years of missing bedtimes and school events and lazy Saturday mornings. 3 years of convincing himself that later, when things settled down, when he got that next promotion or finished that next project, he'd find balance. But there was no balance. There was only this. His daughter burning with fever while he debugged code for people who wouldn't remember his name in 5 years. The phone stopped ringing. A moment later, it started again. Lucas stood, walked back to the living room, and picked up the device. 17 missed calls, 43 unread messages, the emergency alert still strobing across his laptop screen. He looked at it all. The digital chaos, the mounting pressure, the weight of expectation, and felt nothing but a cold, clear certainty. He opened his email. Type 3 sentences. Effective immediately. I resign. I will not be returning. Do not contact me again. He hit send before he could second guess it. The laptop was still screaming. Lucas closed it, unplugged it, and shoved it into the desk drawer. Then he silenced his phone completely and set it face down on the counter. The sudden quiet was disorienting. No alerts, no calls, just the whistle of wind outside and the distant rattle of Emma's breathing from the bedroom. He just walked away from a 6-figure salary, from stock options that would have vested in 8 months, from the only real job security he'd had since Sarah died. He'd abandoned a system mid-crisis, probably torched his professional reputation beyond repair, and guaranteed that every reference check for the rest of his career would end with a red flag the size of a billboard. And he didn't care. Lucas grabbed the fever reducer, a bottle of water, and his coat. When he returned to Emma's room, he helped her sit up enough to take the medicine, then started bundling her in layers, hoodie over pajamas, thick socks, her winter coat that was really too small now, but it was all they had. Where are we going? She asked, words slurring slightly. Hospital, remember? We're going to get you checked out. But the snow... He looked toward the window. She was right. The snow was coming down harder now, thick white curtains that made it impossible to see more than a few feet. The kind of storm that shut down the whole city, that left people stranded on highways and trapped in their homes. His car was buried. The streets weren't plowed, and the nearest hospital was 4 miles away. Lucas pulled out his phone, still silenced, but he could at least check, and opened the weather app. Winter storm warning. All travel discouraged. Roads impassable. He switched to the rideshare app. No drivers available. The taxi service went straight to a busy signal. Emma's breathing hitched again, another cough tearing through her small frame. It's okay, Lucas said, more to himself than to her. We'll figure it out. He carried her to the living room, settled her on the couch wrapped in blankets, then pulled on his boots and went outside to assess the situation. The cold hit him like a wall. His car was a shapeless white mound in the driveway, buried under at least 18 inches of snow, with more piling on every minute. The street was invisible, just an unbroken field of white. No tire tracks, no plows, no signs of life anywhere. His breath came in short clouds as he waded back to the door, snow spilling over the tops of his boots. They were stuck, completely stuck. And Emma's fever wasn't going down. If anything, she'd felt hotter when he picked her up just now. Back inside, Lucas pulled out his phone and started calling. The hospital's nurse line put him on hold for 7 minutes before a harried voice told him to keep monitoring and call 911 if Emma showed signs of respiratory distress. He asked about ambulance response times in the storm. The nurse hesitated, then admitted they were running 2 hours behind on emergency calls, longer for anything not immediately life-threatening. 2 hours. Emma might not have 2 hours if this got worse. He tried calling neighbors. The elderly couple upstairs didn't answer. The guy across the hall was out of town. The family 3 doors down picked up, sympathetic but useless. They were snowed in too, their SUV dead with a failed battery. Lucas sat down hard on the floor, back against the wall, phone still in his hand. Emma dozed fitfully on the couch, her breathing a soundtrack of distress. Outside, the storm showed no signs of stopping. He'd made his choice. Resigned. Walked away. Put her first for the first time in 3 years. And now he couldn't help her anyway. The knock at the door came at 6:43 a.m., sharp and insistent. Lucas's head snapped up. He'd been sitting there for nearly an hour, alternating between checking Emma's temperature, still 104, the medicine barely touching it, and watching the storm consume the world outside. He wasn't expecting anyone. In this weather, nobody was going anywhere. The knock came again, harder this time. He pulled himself to his feet, legs stiff, and crossed to the door. Through the peephole, he saw a figure in a dark coat, face obscured by snow, and the hood of an expensive-looking parka. His hand hesitated on the deadbolt. "Lucas Bennett." The voice was female, clear and commanding even through the door. "Open up. We need to talk." He didn't recognize the voice. "Who is this?" "Evelyn Hart. I'm sure you've seen my name on enough emails by now. Open the door." Lucas's stomach dropped. Evelyn Hart, CEO of Hart Technologies. His boss's boss's boss. The woman whose company he'd just resigned from while her entire infrastructure burned to the ground. "I have nothing to say to you," he called back, "and I have nothing to lose by standing out here until you do. But it's 9 degrees and I'm rapidly losing patience, so let's skip the posturing." Against his better judgment, Lucas opened the door. Evelyn Hart looked exactly like her official photos. Sharp-featured, dark eyes that missed nothing, black hair pulled back tight, but somehow more real, more present. She was maybe 5'6", but carried herself like she was 6 feet tall. Snow clung to her shoulders and hood. Behind her, parked at an angle in the street, was a massive black SUV with its engine running, headlights cutting through the storm. "How did you even get here?" Lucas asked. "I drove." She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, brushing snow off her coat. "Unlike most people in this city, I grew up in Montana. I know how to handle a little weather." "It's a blizzard." "Yes, which is why every member of my senior leadership team is trapped in their homes, useless." Her gaze swept the apartment, taking in the worn furniture, the cold air, the laptop case shoved under the desk. "While you're here, having apparently lost your mind." Lucas closed the door. "I sent an email. I resigned. I'm done." "I read your email. 3 sentences. No notice, no explanation, no handover documentation." "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Yeah, I walked away from a job." "You walked away from a company in the middle of a crisis." Evelyn's voice was sharp, controlled. "A crisis that started on your watch, with your credentials and your system. Every piece of infrastructure we run, cloud services, data pipelines, client applications, is currently on fire. We're losing money faster than I can calculate. Our clients are threatening lawsuits, and you, the one person who can fix this, just vanished." "Not my problem anymore." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "Except it is. Because if this company goes down, if we lose everything we've built, that's on you, your legacy, your failure." Lucas laughed, a bitter sound. "My legacy? You think I care about my legacy right now?" "You should. You'll never work in this industry again. Every door will be closed. Every—" "Miss Hart." Emma's voice, small and hoarse, came from the couch. Both adults turned. She'd pushed herself up slightly, blankets falling away, her flushed face visible in the dim light. "Who's that lady, Daddy?" Lucas moved to her immediately, kneeling beside the couch. "Nobody, sweetheart. Just someone from work. Go back to sleep." But Evelyn was already there, her expression shifting as she took in Emma's condition, the fever flush, the labored breathing, the way she trembled despite the blankets. How long has she been like this? Evelyn asked, her tone completely different now. Since yesterday. Fever won't break. I've been trying to. Why isn't she in a hospital? Because we're snowed in, Lucas snapped. Because the roads are impassable. Ambulances are backed up for hours and I can't get her there. Evelyn looked at Emma, then at Lucas, then toward the window where snow continued to pile against the glass. Something flickered across her face. Calculation, maybe, or recognition of a problem she could actually solve. My SUV has four-wheel drive and winter tires, she said. I can get her to Denver General in 20 minutes. Lucas stared at her. Why would you do that? Because I'm not a monster. Evelyn pulled out her phone, already typing. And because when you're done playing martyr, you're going to fix my system. But first, we get your daughter to a hospital. I'm not fixing anything. We'll discuss that later. Right now, get her ready to move. Emma coughed again, the sound wet and painful. Lucas looked at his daughter, then at Evelyn, then back at Emma. Every instinct screamed not to trust this woman, not to owe her anything, not to let the company back into his life even for a second. But Emma's breathing was getting worse. The fever wasn't breaking, and Evelyn was offering the one thing he couldn't provide, a way out of this apartment and into a hospital. Fine, he said. But the second she's admitted, you leave. No negotiations, no deals. Evelyn was already heading for the door. Whatever you say. Now move. Lucas gathered Emma into his arms, blankets and all, her small body hot and trembling against his chest. She wrapped weak arms around his neck, burying her face against his shoulder. Is it going to be okay? She whispered. Yeah, baby, he said, carrying her toward the door. It's going to be okay. He had no idea if that was true. The SUV was warm, the heater blasting, leather seats pristine. Evelyn drove with the kind of confidence that came from real skill, not bravado, navigating the buried streets with steady precision. Lucas sat in the back with Emma stretched across his lap, her head on his shoulder, eyes closed. How long have you worked for me? Evelyn asked, eyes on the road. 3 years. But I never worked for you. I worked for the company. Same thing. No, it's really not. She took a corner carefully, the SUV's tires finding purchase where his sedan would have slid into a ditch. You built the core infrastructure, the authentication layer, the data pipeline architecture, the redundancy protocols. I remember the proposal. You presented it yourself. Lucas didn't respond. You were good, Evelyn continued. Thorough. You saw problems 3 levels deep and solved them before anyone else knew they existed. So what happened? Why did you let it all fall apart? I didn't let it fall apart. I left. After it started failing. After I chose my daughter over your company. Evelyn was quiet for a moment. Is that what you think you did? That's what I know I did. And if she dies because you spent 3 years neglecting her for a paycheck, was it worth it? The words hit like a slap. Lucas's arms tightened around Emma, jaw clenched so hard it ached. You don't know anything about my life. Well, I know you're a single parent who worked 70-hour weeks and never took PTO. I know your performance reviews mentioned burnout 3 times. I know you were offered a transfer to a less demanding role last year, and you turned it down because you couldn't afford the pay cut. How do you? I read every file on every key employee. It's my job to know these things. She glanced at him in the rearview mirror. So don't pretend I'm some distant executive who doesn't see what's happening on the ground. I see it. I saw you burning out, and I didn't stop it because you kept delivering results. Lucas looked away, watching the snow blur past the window. So this is your apology? No. This is me acknowledging that the system is broken, that we demand everything from people and call it opportunity, that we measure success in hours logged instead of lives lived. Her voice was matter-of-fact, clinical almost. But apologies don't fix infrastructure failures. So when we get to the hospital, after your daughter is stable, we're going to talk about what happens next. There's nothing to talk about. Evelyn didn't respond. Denver General appeared through the snow like a fortress, all concrete and glass and harsh fluorescent light. Evelyn pulled up to the emergency entrance, hazards flashing, and was out of the vehicle before Lucas could move. She yanked open his door, already waving down a nurse who'd appeared with a wheelchair. 6-year-old female, high fever, respiratory distress, Evelyn said with the kind of authority that made people move. How long for a bed? The nurse took one look at Emma and called for immediate triage. Everything after that was a blur. Lucas carrying Emma through automatic doors, warm air hitting his face, bright lights and urgent voices, and someone taking her from his arms while he tried to explain her symptoms. Emma crying out for him as they wheeled her away. A clipboard shoved into his hands. Insurance questions. Medical history. Someone asking about his relationship to the patient. I'm her father, he said, voice raw. Her only parent. They let him follow her to a room, small and sterile, where a young doctor with tired eyes examined her while a nurse got an IV started. Emma whimpered at the needle, reaching for Lucas's hand. He held it tight, murmuring reassurances he didn't quite believe. Fever's 104.8, the doctor said, studying a readout. Oxygen saturation is low. Lungs sound congested. We're going to run some tests, but I'm concerned about pneumonia. When did symptoms start? Yesterday afternoon. Just a fever at first, then the cough. And you waited until now to bring her in? The judgment in the question made Lucas's face burn. I tried. The storm. I understand. You're here now. We'll take it from here. They admitted Emma, started antibiotics, pumped her full of fluids and fever reducers that actually worked. Lucas sat beside her bed as the hours ticked by, watching her breathing gradually ease. Her temperature slowly drop. She slept fitfully, waking every so often to check that he was still there. Not going anywhere, baby, he whispered each time. Right here. At some point, a nurse brought him coffee and a blanket. Later, someone delivered a tray of food he didn't touch. The window showed morning transitioning to afternoon, the storm finally beginning to ease. His phone buzzed once. He'd forgotten about it completely. When he pulled it out, the screen showed 64 missed calls and more than 100 unread messages. He didn't open them. Instead, he turned the phone off and shoved it back in his pocket. Emma's fever broke around 2 p.m., dropping to 100 degrees, then 99. Her breathing smoothed out. Color returned to her cheeks. When she woke up, truly woke up, her eyes were clear for the first time in days. Daddy? Hey, sweetheart. Lucas leaned forward, brushing hair from her forehead. How do you feel? Tired, and my arm hurts. She looked at the IV. What's that? Medicine to make you better. You've been pretty sick. Am I going to be okay? Yeah, you're going to be just fine. She believed him this time. He could see it in her face, the trust that he'd broken so many times by choosing work over her, by being physically present but mentally elsewhere, by promising things he couldn't deliver. But right now, in this moment, he was exactly where he needed to be. Can we go home soon? Probably not today, maybe tomorrow. Will you stay with me? Every second. Emma smiled, a real smile, and closed her eyes again. Within minutes, she was asleep. Actual restful sleep, not the feverish half-consciousness she'd been trapped in before. Lucas exhaled slowly, tension draining from his shoulders. She was okay. She was going to be okay. A soft knock at the door made him look up. Evelyn stood in the doorway, still in her coat, holding 2 cups of coffee. Nurse said she's stable, Evelyn said. Lucas nodded. Good. She stepped inside, setting 1 coffee on the small table beside him. Can we talk now? I told you. The system failure wasn't random. Evelyn's voice was quiet but urgent. We pulled the logs. Someone accessed your credentials at 3:47 this morning and triggered a cascade failure across every critical system. It was deliberate sabotage, and you're being framed for it. Lucas stared at her. What? The board is meeting in 2 hours. They're voting on whether to file criminal charges against you for negligence and sabotage. If they do, you're facing felony prosecution, prison time, and your daughter becomes a ward of the state. The words landed like hammer blows. Lucas's vision tunneled, the room shrinking around him. That's impossible, he said. My credentials are secure. I know you didn't. But someone did using your access, and we have 90 minutes to prove it before the board moves forward. Evelyn pulled out her phone, showing him something, logs, timestamps, access records. I need your help. I need you to walk me through the security protocols so I can find out who actually did this. Lucas looked at Emma, sleeping peacefully, then back at Evelyn. I'm not leaving her. You don't have to. You can guide me remotely. But Lucas, if we don't stop this, you lose everything. Your career, your freedom, your daughter. Is that really the choice you want to make? Emma stirred slightly, shifting in her sleep. Lucas reached out, adjusting her blanket with hands that trembled. 3 years of grinding work, of sacrifice, of convincing himself it was all for her. And now, even walking away, the job was still destroying him. Fine, he said quietly, but I'm not moving from this chair. Evelyn pulled up a second chair, opened her laptop, and set it where they could both see the screen. Then let's get to work. The laptop screen glowed between them, casting pale light across Emma's hospital room. Outside, the storm had finally exhausted itself, leaving Denver buried under 2 feet of snow and an eerie stillness that felt like the city was holding its breath. Lucas kept one hand near Emma's, the other hovering over Evelyn's keyboard as she navigated through layers of security logs he'd designed himself. There, he said, pointing. That timestamp. 3:47 a.m. That's when the cascade started. Evelyn highlighted the entry. Your credentials. Username lbennett_admin. But you were home. Obviously. So someone cloned your access. How? Lucas leaned closer, scanning the authentication trail. His eyes burned from lack of sleep, his mind still foggy, but the code was familiar territory. He'd written half of this security layer himself, knew every backdoor and vulnerability he'd patched over 3 years of development. They'd need my master password and the 2-factor authentication token, he said. Both of those rotate every 6 hours, getting both at the exact same time window. He trailed off, something nagging at him. What? It's not impossible, just really difficult. Unless... He scrolled up, checking the access logs from the previous day. Pull up the VPN records. Everyone who connected remotely in the last 72 hours. Evelyn's fingers flew across the keys. A new window opened, dense with timestamps and IP addresses. Lucas scanned them quickly, looking for patterns, anomalies, anything that didn't fit. Stop, he said. Go back. That one. She highlighted an entry from 2 days ago, remote access from an IP address in Boulder. Login duration, 47 seconds. Disconnected before any activity logged. That's a probe, Lucas said. Someone testing credentials. They failed, got kicked out by the timeout protocol. Whose credentials? He checked the username field. His stomach dropped. Mine. Evelyn's jaw tightened. So they've been targeting you specifically. For at least 2 days. Maybe longer. Lucas rubbed his face, trying to think. They're smart. They didn't trigger any alerts because they kept the sessions short. Just long enough to verify the credentials worked. Not long enough to actually do anything. Until this morning. Until this morning, he agreed. When they had everything they needed and I was... He glanced at Emma, still sleeping peacefully. Distracted. The word tasted bitter. Distracted. As if his daughter's life-threatening fever was some minor inconvenience that had pulled his focus from the real priority. Evelyn must have caught something in his expression because her voice softened slightly. You made the right choice. Did I? Because right now it looks like I'm about to lose everything anyway. Not if we figure out who did this. She pulled up another screen, this one showing active employee accounts. Who had physical access to your workstation? Everyone on the engineering floor. We don't lock our desks. Wonderful. That's 40 people. 43 actually, plus janitorial staff, building security, anyone with a visitor badge. Evelyn made a frustrated sound. This is impossible. We have 90 minutes. She checked her watch. 86 minutes now, and we're looking for a needle in a haystack. Lucas was quiet, staring at the screen. Something about the timing bothered him. The probe attempts, the successful breach, the cascade failure that started exactly when he'd be least able to respond. It was too coordinated, too deliberate. Who benefits if the system goes down? He asked. No one. We all lose money. No, think about it. Who benefits if the system goes down and I'm blamed for it? Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Someone who wants your position, or someone who wants to discredit the current infrastructure so they can replace it with their own solution. Or both. You're talking about Marcus. Marcus Reeves, senior architect, brilliant programmer, insufferably ambitious. He'd been pushing for a complete system overhaul for the last year, arguing that Lucas's design was outdated, inefficient, a relic that needed to be scrapped and rebuilt from scratch. Lucas had fought him at every engineering review, backed by performance metrics that proved the system worked fine. Marcus has been gunning for my job since day one, Lucas said, and he's the only other person with enough system knowledge to pull this off. That's speculation. It's a lead, which is more than we had 5 minutes ago. Evelyn hesitated, then started typing. Marcus called in sick today, first time in 2 years. Convenient. Extremely. She pulled up his employee record, scanning quickly. He lives in Boulder, same city as that probe IP address. Lucas felt something click into place. Can you trace the IP to a physical location? Not without a warrant, which we don't have time to get. Then we go around it, pull up the database access logs. If Marcus sabotaged the system, he'd need to verify the damage afterward. He'd want to see it working, to make sure the failure cascaded properly. Evelyn's fingers moved faster now, urgency creeping into her movements. Database queries from the last 6 hours, filtering by there. She highlighted several entries. Read-only queries against the error logging tables. Timestamps starting at 4:15 a.m. and continuing every 20 minutes. Someone was watching it fail in real time, Lucas said, checking the logs to make sure it was going according to plan. The queries came from... Evelyn pulled up another window. An internal admin account. User mreeves_senior. There's your proof. It's circumstantial. He could argue he was monitoring the situation remotely because he heard about the crisis. At 4:15 in the morning, when he'd called in sick? Lucas shook his head. No one's that dedicated. Marcus would argue he is. Evelyn sat back, staring at the screen. But you're right. This is enough to create reasonable doubt. Enough to delay the board vote while we investigate further. How long will that take? Days? Maybe weeks. I don't have weeks. You said they're filing criminal charges. If the vote goes through, yes. But if I can show them this, she gestured at the screen, I can convince them to pause. Give us time to build a real case. Emma stirred in his bed, making a small sound. Lucas immediately turned toward her, but she settled again without waking. Her breathing was steady now, color returning to her face. The IV drip caught the light as it fed medication into her small arm. She's going to be okay, Evelyn said quietly. I know. Because you brought her here instead of trying to fix everything yourself. Lucas didn't respond. He was watching Emma's chest rise and fall, counting breaths like a prayer. I meant what I said before, Evelyn continued, about the system being broken, about how we push people until they break and then act surprised when they do. She closed the laptop partway, her reflection visible in the screen. I built this company from nothing. 16-hour days, 7 days a week, no personal life, no relationships that lasted longer than a few months. I told myself it was worth it, because we were building something important. Isn't that the dream? The startup story everyone wants? The dream is a lie. Evelyn's voice was flat, matter of fact. I'm 30 years old, and I have nothing except a company that will forget me the moment I'm gone. No family, no real friends, no life outside of quarterly earnings and board meetings. She looked at Emma. You have something I'll never have, and I almost destroyed it by demanding you sacrifice it for me. You didn't put a gun to my head. No, I just made it financially impossible to say no. Made it clear that advancement meant availability, that raises meant overtime, that security meant selling every hour of your life. She opened the laptop again, light washing across her face. I'm not apologizing. I don't know how to build a company any other way, but I'm acknowledging it. Lucas wasn't sure what to say to that. The Evelyn Hart in his head, the distant CEO in expensive suits who sent tersely worded emails about productivity and efficiency, didn't match the woman sitting beside him now, tired and rumpled and unexpectedly honest. Why did you really come to my apartment this morning? He asked. Because you were the only one who could fix the crisis. You could have called. Sent someone else. You drove through a blizzard personally. Evelyn was quiet for a moment. Because I needed to see for myself. Why someone would walk away from a 6-figure salary with 3 sentences. What could possibly be more important than... She stopped. And then I saw your daughter burning with fever and I understood immediately. Most people wouldn't have. Most people don't understand what it's like to lose everything chasing success. She met his eyes. My mother died when I was 15. Cancer. My father was a surgeon, worked constantly, barely noticed she was sick until it was too late. After the funeral, he told me the only thing that mattered was the work, that if you weren't building something, you were wasting your life. Her smile was bitter. So I built a company, and I lost myself doing it. Emma coughed softly in her sleep. Lucas reached out automatically, adjusting her blanket, checking her forehead. Still warm, but not burning. Healing. You can still change it, he said. The company culture, the expectations. Can I? When every competitor works their people to death and we have to match them just to survive? Then you don't survive. You build something different. Easy to say when you're not responsible for 800 employees and their families. Harder to say when you are, Lucas countered, which is why no one does it, because it's easier to keep grinding people down and calling it opportunity. Evelyn's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then swore quietly. The board moved up the meeting. They're starting in 40 minutes. Can you make it? If I leave now, if the roads are clear enough. She stood, gathering her laptop. I'm going to show them everything we found. Make the case that this was sabotage, not negligence. It might not stop the vote, but it'll slow them down. And if it doesn't, then I'll resign too. Tell them to handle their own crisis. Lucas stared at her. You wouldn't. Try me. Evelyn pulled on her coat, checking her phone again. I started this company to build something that mattered. If it's become the kind of place that destroys good people for profit, then it doesn't matter anymore. That's career suicide. So was your resignation email. Apparently it's going around. She headed for the door, then paused. Your daughter's lucky to have a father who'll burn everything down for her. I didn't burn anything down. I just stopped feeding the fire. Same thing. Evelyn glanced back at Emma one more time. I'll call you after the meeting, whatever happens. Why? Because you deserve to know if you're going to be arrested. She left before he could respond, the door clicking shut behind her. Lucas sat in the sudden quiet, listening to the distant sounds of the hospital, muted conversations, the beep of monitors, the soft shuffle of nurses in the corridor. His phone was still off. He pulled it out, stared at the blank screen, then powered it back on. It immediately exploded with notifications, texts from coworkers, emails from HR, voicemails from numbers he didn't recognize. He ignored all of it and opened his messages, scrolling back to the last conversation with Sarah. 3 years old. The final text she'd sent before the accident that killed her. Don't forget Emma has soccer at 4. I'll be home late. Love you. He'd forgotten about soccer, stayed at work until 7, lost in code, while Emma sat on a bench waiting for a parent who never showed. Sarah had been furious. They'd fought about it that night, about his priorities, about what kind of father he was becoming. 2 days later, she was gone. A drunk driver ran a red light, and Lucas became a single parent who'd already proven he couldn't balance work and family even when there were 2 of them. Emma shifted in the bed, her eyes opening halfway. Daddy? He put the phone away immediately. Right here, baby. I'm thirsty. He poured water from the pitcher on the side table, helped her drink through a straw. She managed a few sips before settling back against the pillows. Where's the lady? Emma asked. She had to go to work. Is she your boss? She was. I don't work there anymore. Because of me? The question hit him hard. No, sweetheart. Because I should have stopped a long time ago. Emma seemed to accept this. I don't like it when you work all the time. I know. You're always on your computer, even when we're supposed to be playing. Lucas felt something crack in his chest. I'm sorry. Are you going to stop now? Yeah, I'm going to stop. Promise? He took her small hand in his. I promise. She smiled, eyes already closing again. Good. Because I missed you. The words destroyed him. I missed you. Not when you were away, but when he was right there in the same room, physically present but mentally absent, a ghost haunting his own life. He sat there holding her hand as she drifted back to sleep, replaying 3 years of failures, birthday parties where he'd spent half the time on conference calls, bedtime stories cut short by emergency alerts, school events he'd missed entirely because a deployment couldn't wait. Every single time he'd chosen the job over her, convinced himself it was necessary, that he was providing, that she'd understand someday. Except she was 6. She didn't understand why Daddy was always busy, always stressed, always somewhere else, even when he was home. She just knew she was alone. The door opened. A doctor appeared. Not the young one from this morning, but an older woman with gray streaks in her dark hair and the kind of calm competence that came from years of experience. "Mr. Bennett? I'm Dr. Patel. I've been reviewing Emma's case." Lucas straightened. "Is she okay?" "She's responding well to treatment. The antibiotics are working, her fever's down, and her oxygen levels are improving. We'll want to keep her another night for observation, but I'm optimistic about a full recovery." Relief washed through him so powerfully he felt dizzy. "Thank you. You got her here just in time. Another few hours and we'd be looking at a very different situation." "Doctor." Patel glanced at Emma, then back at Lucas. "Can I ask, has she been sick often?" "No, she's usually healthy. Why?" "Because her immune system is slightly compromised. Not drastically, but enough that I'd recommend some lifestyle adjustments. More sleep, better nutrition, less stress." "She's 6. How stressed can she be?" Dr. Patel's expression was kind, but direct. Children absorb the stress around them. If her primary caregiver is chronically stressed, overworked, or emotionally unavailable, it affects them. Their cortisol levels rise. Sleep quality drops. Immune function suffers. Lucas felt like he'd been punched. "You're saying this is my fault." "I'm saying stress is a factor in childhood illness, and managing your own stress will help manage hers." She pulled up a chair, sitting down like she had all the time in the world. "Mr. Bennett, I see a lot of single parents in this hospital. Good parents who are doing everything they can with impossible circumstances. The system isn't designed to support you. Childcare is expensive, jobs are inflexible. Healthcare is complicated. You're not failing, the infrastructure is failing you." "That doesn't make Emma less sick." "No, but understanding the cause helps prevent recurrence." Dr. Patel folded her hands. "I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to tell you that your daughter needs you present, not just physically, but emotionally. Kids don't need perfect parents, they need available ones." The words settled over him like a weight. Available, not successful, not high-earning, not impressive, just there. "I quit my job," Lucas said quietly. "This morning, right before we came here." "Good. I have no income now, no prospects. I probably torched my entire career." "And your daughter has a father who chose her over everything else. That's worth more than any salary." Dr. Patel stood. "I'll check back in a few hours. Try to get some rest yourself. You look like you haven't slept in days." She left before he could respond. Lucas sat in the silence, exhaustion finally catching up with him. When was the last time he'd actually slept? Not just dozed in a chair, but real, restorative sleep. He couldn't remember. His phone buzzed, a text from Evelyn. "Board meeting starting. Wish me luck." He almost typed something back, then stopped. What could he say? "Good luck proving I'm not a criminal. Thanks for maybe ruining your own career to save mine." Another buzz. Different number. He didn't recognize it at first, then realized it was Marcus. "Heard about your resignation. Tough break, man. Hope everything works out." The casual cruelty of it made Lucas's jaw clench. Marcus knew exactly what he'd done. Knew Lucas was hours away from potential arrest, from losing Emma, from complete destruction. And he was sending smug fake sympathy like they were old friends. Lucas typed back without thinking. "I know it was you." 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then reappeared. "No idea what you're talking about. System failures happen. Maybe if you'd been more careful with your credentials. We traced it to your IP address, your account, your queries monitoring the damage." The dots appeared and disappeared several times. Finally, circumstantial. "And even if it wasn't, who's going to believe you? You're the one who abandoned ship during a crisis. I'm just a concerned employee who tried to help." Lucas stared at the message, rage building in his chest. Marcus had planned this perfectly, waited for the exact moment Lucas would be most vulnerable, most distracted, most unable to defend himself. Then struck with precision, covering his tracks just enough to create plausible deniability while destroying Lucas's reputation. He started typing a response, then deleted it, then started again. Then deleted that too. What was the point? Marcus was right. Even with the evidence Evelyn had found, it was circumstantial. A good lawyer could argue coincidence, could paint Marcus as a dedicated employee, and Lucas as a negligent saboteur trying to deflect blame. Unless they could prove motive, unless they could show a pattern of behavior, of ambition, of... Lucas's phone rang. Evelyn. He answered immediately. The board postponed the vote, she said without preamble. I showed them the evidence, made the case for sabotage. They're opening an investigation. How long? 72 hours minimum, which means you're not getting arrested today. Lucas exhaled slowly. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. The investigation could still go against you, and Marcus is already spreading a counter-narrative that you're trying to frame him to cover your own negligence. Of course he is. But here's the thing. Evelyn's voice took on an edge. I pulled his employment record, every major project he's led, every initiative he's championed. And there's a pattern. 3 times in the last 2 years, systems have failed mysteriously right before his proposals for replacement infrastructure. 3 times, investigations turned up nothing concrete. 3 times, he got what he wanted. You think he's done this before? I think he's made a career out of creating problems only he can solve. And I think if we dig deep enough, we'll find proof. In 72 hours? In 72 hours. She paused. But I can't do it alone. I need someone who knows the systems, who can spot the patterns Marcus tried to hide. Someone who built half this infrastructure and knows where the bodies are buried. Lucas looked at Emma, still sleeping peacefully. I'm not leaving her. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to help remotely. Consult. Guide me through the technical details while I handle the investigation. I resigned. I'm done with the company. You resigned from employment, but you can still work as a contractor, on your terms, your hours, your boundaries. Evelyn's voice softened. Lucas, I know you don't owe me anything. I know I'm partly responsible for the situation you're in. But right now, you're the only person who can stop Marcus from getting away with this, from doing to someone else exactly what he did to you. He wanted to say no, wanted to hang up, turn off the phone, focus entirely on Emma and nothing else. But the thought of Marcus winning, of destroying someone else's career with the same calculated cruelty, made him sick. What do you need? He asked. Access to the archived system logs, everything from the past 2 years. Marcus was careful, but nobody's perfect. If he sabotaged those other projects, there'll be digital fingerprints. The archives are siloed. You'd need admin credentials to, which you have, which I had. They were probably revoked the second I resigned. Not yet. I delayed the revocation until after the investigation. She paused. So are you in? Emma stirred, her hand tightening slightly around his. Still asleep, but aware on some level that he was there, that he wasn't leaving. I'll send you the access codes, Lucas said, but I'm not running queries myself. I'm not spending hours buried in logs while my daughter needs me. I'll do the heavy lifting. You just tell me what to look for. Fine. But Evelyn, when this is over, I'm done. For real. No consulting, no emergency calls, no last-minute crises that somehow become my problem. Understood. He hung up, immediately feeling the weight of the decision. He just agreed to help the company he'd walked away from, to invest energy and time into proving his innocence instead of focusing entirely on Emma. But maybe that was the point. Maybe being a good father didn't mean shutting out the entire world. Maybe it meant choosing battles carefully, setting boundaries clearly, and not letting anyone, not even himself, guilt him into sacrificing her well-being for someone else's crisis. Emma's eyes opened. Who was that? Work stuff. But just for a little while. You promised you'd stop. I promised I'd stop working all the time. This is different. This is helping fix something broken so it doesn't hurt other people. She considered this seriously. Like when we fixed Mrs. Chen's fence after the storm? Lucas smiled despite everything. Mrs. Chen was their elderly neighbor, and yes, they'd spent a Saturday repairing her fence after high winds knocked it down. Exactly like that. Okay, but you can't do it all the time. I won't. Promise? Promise. She settled back, satisfied. I'm hungry. Yeah? What sounds good? Pancakes. Pretty sure the hospital doesn't serve pancakes at... He checked the time. 4 in the afternoon. Then regular food, but not the yucky stuff. He pressed the call button for the nurse. We'll see what they have. While they waited, Lucas pulled out his phone and started composing the message to Evelyn with his access credentials. His fingers hesitated over the keyboard. Sending these codes meant trust, trusting her to use them responsibly, to not pull him deeper into the crisis than he'd agreed to respect the boundaries he'd just set. But she'd driven through a blizzard to save Emma, had faced down her own board to buy him time, had admitted her own failures with a rawness that felt genuine, not calculated. He sent the codes. A nurse arrived with a menu, and Emma spent 5 minutes deliberating between chicken nuggets and mac and cheese with the seriousness of someone making a life-altering decision. She chose both. Lucas added applesauce and juice, then watched as she ate with more appetite than she'd shown in 2 days. Daddy? Yeah, baby? Are we going to be okay without your job? The question was far too mature for a 6-year-old. Lucas felt a pang of guilt that she even had to think about things like job security and financial stability. Yeah, he said. We're going to be okay. How do you know? Because we have each other. That's all that really matters. Emma thought about this while chewing a chicken nugget. Mom used to say that. Lucas's throat tightened. She did? Before the accident. She said as long as we had each other, we'd be okay. Emma looked at him with eyes too old for her face. But then she was gone and you were always working and I thought maybe she was wrong. He pulled her into a careful hug, mindful of the IV. She wasn't wrong. I was wrong. For not being there. For choosing work over you. But I'm fixing that now. You can't bring Mom back. No, I can't. But I can be the dad you deserve, starting right now. Emma hugged him back, small arms tight around his neck. They stayed like that until her food got cold, until a nurse came in to check vitals, until the moment broke naturally and they pulled apart. His phone buzzed. Evelyn again. Got into the archives. Where do I start? Lucas looked at Emma, now focused on her mac and cheese, then typed back. Look for authentication failures that got cleared as false positives. Marcus would test his exploits, trigger alerts, then have them dismissed as system glitches. How far back? 2 years. Every major incident. That's hundreds of logs. Filter by his username. Cross-reference with times he was supposedly off-duty or on vacation. If he's accessing systems when he shouldn't be, that's your pattern. On it. Lucas set the phone down, but his mind was already working through the problem. Marcus was smart, but arrogance made people sloppy. He'd assume his tracks were covered well enough that no one would look this closely, that Lucas would be too destroyed to fight back. But Lucas had built these systems. Knew every layer, every protocol, every place where actions left traces, even when you thought they didn't. If Marcus had been sabotaging infrastructure for 2 years, the evidence was there. They just had to find it before the 72 hours ran out, and the board made their decision final. Emma finished eating and started yawning. Lucas cleared the tray, helped her get comfortable, and sat beside the bed as she drifted toward sleep again. Daddy? She mumbled, eyes already closed. Yeah? I'm glad you're here. Me too, baby. Don't leave. I won't. She was asleep within seconds, breathing deep and steady. Lucas watched her for a long time, this small person who'd been entrusted to him, who deserved so much better than what he'd been giving her. His phone stayed silent for nearly an hour. He started to worry that Evelyn had hit a dead end, that Marcus had been more careful than they'd thought. Then it buzzed with the message that made his heart race. Found something. Call me. He stepped into the hallway, keeping Emma's room visible through the door window, and dialed. What did you find? He asked. A pattern. 3 incidents, just like I said. Each time, authentication failures from Marcus's account got flagged and then cleared. But here's what's interesting. The clearances all came from the same person. Who? Richard Holbrook, VP of Infrastructure. Lucas felt ice in his veins. Holbrook's been with the company for 10 years. He hired me. And he's been covering for Marcus every single time. Evelyn's voice was tight with controlled anger. Which means this isn't just one ambitious architect. It's a conspiracy. Lucas's mind raced through every interaction he'd ever had with Richard Holbrook. The man who'd interviewed him 3 years ago, who'd approved his hire, who'd championed his infrastructure designs in executive meetings. Holbrook had always seemed decent, straightforward, one of the few people in upper management who actually understood the technical work, instead of just managing budgets and timelines. That doesn't make sense, Lucas said, keeping his voice low in the hospital corridor. Holbrook built half the company's infrastructure strategy. Why would he sabotage his own systems? Because they're not his systems anymore. Evelyn's voice carried the sharp edge of someone who'd just seen a pattern snap into focus. Look at the timeline. Each incident happened right after you'd blocked one of Marcus's proposals. Marcus would pitch some massive overhaul. You'd present data showing the current system worked fine, and then mysteriously within weeks there'd be a catastrophic failure, making my system look unreliable. Making your system look outdated and fragile, and every time Marcus's proposed solution suddenly seemed reasonable. Papers rustled on her end. After the second incident, Holbrook started pushing for a complete infrastructure replacement. He formed a committee, appointed Marcus as lead architect. They were building a case to scrap everything you'd designed and start over. Lucas leaned against the wall, watching Emma through the window. She was still asleep, small and peaceful, completely unaware that her father was standing in a hospital hallway, unraveling a conspiracy. But the board never approved the overhaul. Because the cost projections were insane, $40 million minimum, maybe twice that depending on implementation. Even with the failures, your system was cheaper to maintain than Marcus's replacement would be to build. Evelyn paused. So they needed something bigger. Something catastrophic enough that the board would have no choice but to approve a complete rebuild. This morning. A total system collapse blamed on your negligence, with you conveniently resigning in the middle of it. Marcus swoops in with his emergency solution, Holbrook backs him with VP authority, and the board rubber stamps it because what else can they do with everything burning down? Lucas felt sick. They were going to let me take the fall for this. Criminal charges, prison time, losing Emma, all of it just collateral damage so they could get their project approved. Yes. The casual cruelty of it was staggering. Not enemies, not people who hated him, just colleagues who saw him as an obstacle and decided the easiest solution was complete destruction. Professional murder dressed up as business necessity. Do you have proof? Lucas asked. Real proof, not just circumstantial evidence? I have the pattern. 3 incidents, 3 clearances from Holbrook, 3 proposals from Marcus that followed. But you're right, a good lawyer could argue coincidence. Her frustration bled through. We need something concrete, communication between them showing intent, financial records showing kickbacks, something that proves coordination. Email? Already checked. Nothing. If they were smart, they used encrypted messaging or just met in person. Lucas thought for a moment, running through the architecture of the company's systems in his mind. What about calendar records? If they were meeting regularly, it would show up in scheduled appointments. Corporate calendars are public. Everyone could see if the VP of infrastructure was meeting with a senior architect. Not if they used conference room bookings without attendee lists. Just reserved a room under a generic name and met there. He pushed off the wall, pacing the short length of the corridor. Pull the conference room reservation logs for the past 2 years. Look for rooms booked by either Holbrook or Marcus, especially right before or after the incidents. That's thousands of bookings. Filter by rooms on the executive floor. Holbrook wouldn't risk meeting in the general engineering areas where people might notice. He'd want privacy, somewhere he belonged naturally. Okay, give me a few minutes. The line went quiet but didn't disconnect. Lucas could hear her typing, the aggressive click of keys that meant focused intensity. He checked on Emma again through the window, still asleep, monitors showing steady heartbeat and respiration. A nurse walked past, gave him a brief smile, continued down the corridor. His phone buzzed with a text. Marcus again. Board investigation won't find anything, because there's nothing to find. But hey, at least you got a dramatic exit. Very cinematic. Lucas deleted it without responding. Marcus wanted him angry, wanted him to make mistakes out of emotion. But Lucas had spent 3 years debugging code, finding needles in haystacks of data, tracing errors through thousands of lines of logic. This was just another problem to solve, and emotion wouldn't help. Found something, Evelyn said suddenly. Conference room bookings, executive floor, reserved under generic project names, infrastructure review session, system architecture planning. all booked by Holbrook's assistant, but the timing, she trailed off. What about the timing? Each booking is within 48 hours of when Marcus's credentials were used to probe the system. Like they were meeting to plan the sabotage, then Marcus would go test it, then they'd meet again to review results. How many meetings? 17 over 2 years. Lucas felt a spark of hope. That's a pattern. That's enough to, It's still not proof of conspiracy. Just proof they met regularly, which they could explain away as legitimate infrastructure planning. Evelyn made a frustrated sound. We need their actual conversations, what they said in those meetings. Conference rooms have calendar systems. Some have recording equipment for presentations, which would be erased after each meeting. Usually, but not always. Lucas stopped pacing. Which room did they use most often? Keys clicked. Executive Conference Room C12 out of 17 meetings. That room has a legacy presentation capture system. It was supposed to be upgraded 2 years ago, but kept getting delayed because of budget cuts. Lucas's mind was working through the technical details. The system auto-records everything to a local server for archival purposes. Most people forget it's even running. Would it still have recordings from 2 years ago? If nobody bothered to clear the storage, yes. It's a massive hard drive array in the server room, probably hasn't been touched in years. Evelyn was quiet for a moment. I can access the server room. But Lucas, even if the recordings exist, pulling them without a warrant could be legally problematic. So get a warrant. Based on what evidence? Conference room bookings and a pattern of meetings? No judge would sign that. Then we're stuck. Unless, she trailed off, thinking, unless we can prove the current crisis was sabotage first, get an official investigation opened with legal authority, then use that to justify pulling historical records. We only have 72 hours before the board votes. I know. Lucas rubbed his face, exhaustion creeping back in. Through the window, Emma was starting to stir, her small form shifting under the blankets. He needed to be in there when she woke up, not out here chasing evidence for a company he'd already quit. Send me the logs from this morning's breach, he said. Everything. Every authentication attempt, every database query, every system call. If Marcus made even one mistake, it'll be in there. You said you weren't going to run queries yourself. I'm not. I'm going to read what you already pulled. There's a difference. Lucas, Evelyn, you need me or you don't. If you need me, send the logs. If you don't, then we're done and I'm spending the rest of the day with my daughter. She was quiet for a long moment. Sending them now. His phone buzzed with an incoming email, file attachment so large they'd take minutes to download on the hospital's Wi-Fi. Lucas ended the call and walked back into Emma's room. She was awake now, looking around with groggy confusion. Hey, sweetheart, he said, sitting beside her bed. How you feeling? Better? My head doesn't hurt anymore. That's good. That's really good. Can we go home? Not yet. Doctor wants to make sure you're all the way better first. Emma's face fell. I don't like it here. It smells weird and the bed's uncomfortable, and I want my stuff. I know, but it's just for one more night, okay? Then we'll go home and you can sleep in your own bed and we'll watch whatever movies you want. Even the princess ones you think are boring? Lucas smiled despite everything. Even those ones. She seemed satisfied with this. What were you doing out there? Just talking to someone from work. Remember? We're fixing something so it doesn't hurt other people. Are you almost done fixing it? He wished he could say yes. Getting close. His phone finished downloading the files. Lucas opened the first one, authentication logs from 3:45 to 4 a.m., the critical window when everything started failing. Row after row of data, timestamps measured in milliseconds, system calls that meant nothing to most people but told him a detailed story. Emma picked up the television remote. Can I watch cartoons? Sure, baby. She found a channel playing some animated show about talking animals. Lucas half listened while scanning the logs, looking for anomalies, anything that didn't fit the pattern of a normal system failure. There. A login attempt at 347.23 using his credentials. Successful authentication from an IP address in Boulder. Immediate escalation to admin privileges. Then a series of commands executing in rapid succession, disabling backup protocols, corrupting authentication databases, triggering cascade failures across dependent systems. But something was off. The commands were too fast, too precise. No human typed that quickly. It was automated, a script that had been prepared in advance and executed the moment access was granted. Lucas pulled up a second log file, this one showing database queries. More of the same. Automated commands, perfectly timed, designed to cause maximum damage while covering tracks. Except whoever wrote the script had made one small mistake. The commands included error suppression flags that didn't exist in the current version of the database software. They were legacy flags from an older version, deprecated 18 months ago when Lucas had overseen the upgrade. Anyone who'd worked with the current system would know those flags didn't work anymore. But someone who'd written the script 2 years ago, before the upgrade, wouldn't know. They'd test it on their local environment, probably running an older software version for compatibility reasons, and it would work fine. Then they'd deploy it in production, and the flags would be ignored, generating error messages that got logged, even though they were supposed to be suppressed. Lucas scrolled through the error logs. There it was. 17 entries from 3:47 to 3:52 a.m., all flagged as unknown parameter and traced back to the IP address in Boulder. He opened his laptop, the one he'd shoved in a drawer this morning, and pulled up a terminal window. The muscle memory of typing commands came back instantly. He pinged the Boulder IP address, ran a reverse lookup, cross-referenced it against the company's VPN logs. The IP belonged to a residential internet provider, not corporate infrastructure, someone's home network. Lucas pulled up the employee directory, found Marcus's home address in Boulder, then used a public records search to find the associated internet provider. It matched. The sabotage had been executed from Marcus's home computer. He took screenshots, saved them to a secure folder, then called Evelyn back. "I have proof," he said the moment she answered. Marcus ran the attack from his home network, and he used deprecated command flags that show the script was written at least 18 months ago. Meaning this was premeditated. Meaning this was planned before I even got promoted to lead architect. They've been working on this for years. Evelyn swore softly. That's enough. That's enough for the board to open a formal investigation with legal authority. Can you get them back together tonight? It's almost 6. Most of them have left for the day. Then call an emergency meeting. Tell them you have evidence of corporate sabotage and industrial espionage. Tell them someone tried to destroy the company from the inside. Lucas kept his voice steady, professional, even as anger simmered underneath. Tell them that if they don't act immediately, whoever did this will have time to destroy evidence and cover their tracks. They're going to push back. Ask why this couldn't wait until morning. Because in the morning, Marcus and Holbrook will know we're on to them. Right now they think they're safe. They think I'm destroyed and you're scrambling to contain the crisis. We have maybe 6 hours before they realize the board's investigation is actually closing in on them. Okay? Okay, I'll make the calls. She paused. Lucas, if this works, if we prove conspiracy, you know what happens next, right? Criminal charges, real ones. Against a VP and a senior architect. This isn't just firing people. This is fraud, sabotage, possibly RICO charges, depending on how the lawyers frame it. Her voice was tight. The company will be in the news. Our clients will panic. Stock price will tank. Everything we've built could collapse. Or you could bury it, quietly fire them, settle with NDAs, pretend it never happened. Is that what you want? Lucas looked at Emma, absorbed in her cartoon, completely innocent to the conversation happening 3 feet away. What did he want? Justice? Revenge? For Marcus and Holbrook to suffer the way they'd tried to make him suffer? No. He wanted them to never be able to do this to anyone else. I want the truth on record, he said. I want everyone to know what they did, and I want them to face actual consequences, not just golden parachutes and quiet exits. That's what I thought. Evelyn's voice carried a hint of approval. I'll call the board, get everyone assembled within the hour. Can you send me everything you found? Already emailing it. And Lucas? Thank you for not walking away completely. He almost laughed. You drove through a blizzard and saved my daughter's life. This is the least I can do. I didn't save her life. I just drove a car. You didn't have to. You could have sent the crisis to someone else. Could have stayed in your office and let me figure it out. But you showed up. Lucas glanced at Emma again. That matters. Evelyn was quiet for a moment. I'll call you after the meeting. She hung up. Lucas set his phone down and closed his laptop, trying to shift his focus back to being present. Emma was watching him with curiosity. Is the thing fixed now? She asked. Almost. Just a little bit more to do. Then can we be done with work? Yeah, baby. Then we can be done. She seemed satisfied with this and went back to her show. Lucas sat there, half watching the television, half running through scenarios in his mind. What if the board didn't believe the evidence? What if they decided it was still too circumstantial, too risky to pursue? What if Marcus and Holbrook had enough political capital to weather the accusations? His phone buzzed. A text from a number he didn't recognize. You're making a mistake. Walk away now, and this ends quietly. Keep pushing, and you'll regret it. Lucas stared at the message. No name, but the implication was clear. Someone knew what he and Evelyn were doing. Someone was watching. He screenshot the text, forwarded it to Evelyn with a single word. Threat. Her response came immediately. Noted. Don't respond. Keep your door locked. Lucas stood, walked to the hospital room door, and checked the lock. It engaged with a solid click. Through the small window, the corridor was quiet. Just nurses at their station and the occasional visitor walking past. Nobody suspicious. Nobody watching. But someone had his personal cell number. Someone knew he was helping Evelyn investigate, which meant either they'd hacked his phone or someone at the company was feeding them information. Emma noticed him at the door. What's wrong? Nothing, sweetheart. Just making sure we're safe. Safe from what? He couldn't tell her the truth, that people he'd worked with for 3 years had tried to destroy him and might not be done yet. That corporate espionage wasn't just something from movies, that real people really did terrible things for money and power and advancement. Just being careful, he said instead, like locking the front door at home. She accepted this easily. Kids were good at that, at taking reassurance at face value without demanding detailed explanations. Lucas wished adults could do the same. His phone rang. Evelyn again. Board meeting in 45 minutes, she said without preamble. I've got 6 members confirmed, 2 more tentative. We need a majority vote to open the formal investigation. What's the count? 4 definite yes votes based on the evidence. 2 probable no's. They're worried about the optics, the media attention. The remaining 2 are undecided. So we need at least 1 undecided to swing our way. Yes, which means the presentation has to be airtight. No gaps, no speculation, just facts. She paused. Can you join remotely, video conference? Having you there to answer technical questions would help. Lucas looked at Emma. She was engrossed in her show, eating ice chips from a cup the nurse had brought. Stable, safe, occupied. I can join audio only, he said. But I'm not turning on video, and if my daughter needs me, I'm dropping the call immediately. Fair enough. I'll send you the conference link. 30 minutes later, Lucas sat in the corner of Emma's room with earbuds in, laptop balanced on his knees, listening to board members file into a conference room somewhere across the city. He recognized voices. The CFO, the chief operating officer, several outside investors who held board seats. The audio crackled with the sound of chairs scraping, papers rustling, someone asking about coffee. Thank you all for coming on short notice, Evelyn said, her voice carrying the formal authority she'd lacked in the car, in the hospital, in every moment of unexpected humanity Lucas had witnessed today. This was CEO Evelyn Hart, commanding a room full of powerful people. We're here because I have evidence of a coordinated conspiracy to sabotage our infrastructure and frame our lead architect for criminal negligence. Silence. Then someone cleared their throat. That's a serious accusation, said a male voice Lucas recognized as David Chen, the CFO. What evidence? Evelyn walked them through everything. The pattern of failures, the clearances from Holbrook, the probe attempts from Marcus's home network, the deprecated command flags that proved premeditation. Lucas heard papers shuffling as she distributed printed copies of the logs, the screenshots, the timeline. This shows correlation, said another voice, female, one of the outside investors. Not necessarily coordination. It shows 17 meetings between Holbrook and Marcus, timed to coincide with sabotage attempts, Evelyn countered. It shows authentication failures that were deliberately cleared without proper investigation. And it shows this morning's attack was executed from Marcus Reeves's home computer using a script written at least 18 months ago. Can we verify that's actually his home network? Chen asked. Lucas unmuted himself. Yes, I cross-referenced the IP address with employee records and public internet provider databases. It's a residential connection registered to Marcus Reeves at his Boulder address. Mr. Bennett, the investor's voice was cool. You're the one who resigned this morning. Why should we trust your analysis? Because I built the systems you're trying to protect. Because I have no reason to lie when I've already quit. And because if I wanted to frame Marcus, I'd do a better job than showing you deprecated command flags that accidentally prove his guilt. Silence again. Lucas could feel them processing, weighing credibility against evidence against risk. What are you proposing? Chen asked Evelyn. Immediate formal investigation with legal authority. Forensic audit of all systems. Suspension of Marcus Reeves and Richard Holbrook pending investigation results. And full cooperation with law enforcement if the evidence supports criminal charges. That's premature, someone else said. We don't know. We know enough. Evelyn's voice cut through. We know our infrastructure was deliberately sabotaged. We know it was designed to frame an innocent employee. We know this has been planned for years. If we wait, if we hesitate, they'll destroy evidence. They'll lawyer up. And we'll lose any chance of getting to the truth. The media will have a field day with this, the investor said. Corporate sabotage, internal conspiracy. Our stock will crater. Our stock will crater anyway if we ignore this, and it comes out later that we knew and did nothing. Evelyn's tone was sharp. This is about doing the right thing, not protecting short-term share price. Lucas heard murmuring, side conversations he couldn't quite make out. Emma looked over at him, curious about what he was doing. He gave her a reassuring smile and she went back to her show. I want to hear from Holbrook, Chen said. Get him on the phone. Let him respond to these accusations before we vote. With respect, David, that's a terrible idea, Evelyn said. The moment we tip them off, they start destroying evidence. We can't vote to suspend a VP based solely on circumstantial evidence without giving him a chance to defend himself. It's not circumstantial anymore. It's documented sabotage from a verified IP address. The argument continued, voices rising. Lucas could feel the meeting slipping away from them. The board was going to defer, going to demand more evidence or due process, or some procedural delay that would give Marcus and Holbrook time to cover their tracks. His phone buzzed with another text. Same unknown number. Last warning. Drop this or your daughter pays the price. Lucas's blood went cold. He screenshot the message, forwarded it to Evelyn, then unmuted himself again. Someone just threatened my daughter, he said, voice cutting through the debate. Told me to drop the investigation or she'd pay the price. That message came in while we've been on this call. Dead silence. Forward it to me, Chen said quietly. Lucas sent it to Evelyn, heard her phone buzz. I have it, she said. Untraceable number, but the timing is damning. Someone's listening to this call. Someone knows we're closing in. That could be anyone, Bus, the investor protested. A bluff. It's not a bluff. Lucas kept his voice level, despite the rage building in his chest. These people sabotaged critical infrastructure. They tried to frame me for criminal charges that would have taken my daughter away, and now they're threatening her directly. So you can debate procedures and optics all you want, but I'm calling the police, and I'm going to tell them everything. Mr. Bennett, that's not... My daughter is 6 years old, and she's in a hospital bed fighting pneumonia while someone threatens her life because I helped expose corporate fraud. So yes, I'm calling the police. You can vote to investigate or not, but this is now a criminal matter either way. He ended the call, pulled out his earbuds, and immediately dialed 911. His hands were shaking with adrenaline and fear and fury. Emma was still watching television, completely unaware that someone had just threatened her. 911, what's your emergency? I need to report a threat against my daughter. She's a patient at Denver General Hospital, and someone just sent me a message threatening her safety. The dispatcher's voice stayed calm, professional. What's your location? Denver General, 4th floor, room 412. Is your daughter in immediate danger? Lucas looked at Emma, safe and oblivious. I don't know. The threat was via text message, but it's connected to corporate sabotage and conspiracy, and I need police here now. Stay where you are. I'm dispatching officers to your location. His phone buzzed. Evelyn calling. He answered. The board just voted, she said. Unanimous. Full investigation, immediate suspension of Holbrook and Reeves, and full cooperation with law enforcement. I'm heading to your location with private security. Don't let anyone you don't recognize into that room. Police are already on the way. Good. Lucas, I'm sorry. I didn't think they'd... You didn't do this. They did. He stood, positioned himself between the door and Emma's bed. Just get here. 10 minutes. The call ended. Lucas locked his phone and focused on the door, watching through the small window for any movement. His mind was racing through scenarios. How would someone get to Emma in a hospital? Through the main entrance? Service elevators? Would they try to blend in as staff or just force their way in? Emma noticed him standing. Daddy, you're scaring me. He forced his expression to soften. Sorry, baby, just waiting for some people to show up. Everything's fine. You don't look like everything's fine. Smart kid, too smart. It will be, he said, I promise. 2 uniformed police officers appeared in the corridor 3 minutes later, conferring with nurses before approaching the room. Lucas opened the door. Lucas Bennett? That's me. Can we come in? He let them enter, keeping his voice low so Emma wouldn't hear details. He showed them the threatening texts, explained the corporate sabotage, the conspiracy, the investigation that had triggered the threats. One officer took notes while the other examined the text. We'll need to take your phone for evidence, the note-taking officer said. I need it to stay in contact with... We'll document the messages and return it within the hour, but right now this is evidence of terroristic threatening. We need to preserve it properly. Lucas handed over his phone reluctantly. Emma was watching everything with wide eyes. What's happening? She asked quietly. Just some police officers helping us stay safe, Lucas said. Nothing to worry about. The officer who'd been examining the text looked up. We're going to post someone outside your room. Hospital security is being notified. No one gets in without clearing ID with us first. Thank you. More footsteps in the corridor. Evelyn appeared with 2 men in dark suits, private security, professional and alert. The police officers exchanged glances with them, establishing some kind of unspoken hierarchy of protection. Evelyn pulled Lucas aside while the security personnel positioned themselves. Holbrook and Marcus have both been suspended, she said quietly. Security escorted them out of the building 30 minutes ago. Their corporate access is revoked, laptops seized, phones confiscated. Did either of them have personal phones? Probably, but we can't control those. Then they could have sent the threats from personal devices before security took their corporate equipment. The police are already getting warrants for their phone records. Evelyn glanced at Emma, who was watching everyone with a mixture of fear and fascination. How is she? Scared? Confused? Wondering why her dad's hospital room suddenly looks like a crime scene. I'm sorry for all of this. Lucas shook his head. Stop apologizing. You didn't sabotage anything. You didn't threaten anyone. You're trying to fix what they broke. I created the environment where this was possible, where people felt desperate enough to destroy each other for advancement. She looked exhausted, the day's chaos finally catching up with her. When this is over, things are going to change. The whole culture, the expectations, the way we measure success. No more burning people out for profit. That's ambitious. It's necessary. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowned. The board wants me back. They're calling an emergency session to discuss media strategy. Go, we're safe here. She hesitated, looking at the security guards, the police officer outside the door. You're sure? Evelyn, there are 4 armed professionals standing between my daughter and anyone who wants to hurt her. We're as safe as we're going to get. She nodded, squeezed his arm briefly, a gesture so unexpected it took him a moment to process, then left. The security guards settled into positions that suggested they'd done this before, professional and unobtrusive. The police officer outside maintained his post, checking IDs of everyone who passed. Lucas returned to Emma's bedside. She was crying silently, tears running down her cheeks. Hey, what's wrong? I want to go home, she whispered. I don't like all these people. I don't like being scared. He pulled her into a careful hug. I know, baby, I know. But they're here to keep us safe, just for tonight. Tomorrow, everything will be better. Promise? He wanted to promise. Wanted to guarantee that by morning the threats would be gone, the conspiracy exposed, everything back to normal. But he'd made too many promises already that he couldn't keep. I promise I'll do everything I can, he said instead. And right now, that means keeping you safe. She clung to him, small body trembling. Lucas held her and watched the door and tried to figure out how his life had gone from debugging code to protecting his daughter from corporate criminals in less than 24 hours. His borrowed phone, one of the security guards had given him a temporary cell, buzzed with a text from Evelyn. Police traced the threatening texts. They came from a burner phone purchased 3 days ago with cash. No way to trace to specific person. So we have nothing. We have Marcus and Holbrook in custody. Their lawyers are already making noise, but the evidence is strong. The board approved full cooperation with the DA's office. What about the threats? Being investigated as a separate criminal matter. But Lucas, these are serious people with serious resources. Until they're formally charged and in jail, you need to stay protected. How long will that take? Days at minimum, maybe weeks. Lucas looked at the security guards, the police officer, the locked door. Days or weeks of living like this, of Emma being terrified, of not knowing if the threats were real or just intimidation. Another text from Evelyn. The board voted to reinstate you with full back pay and a formal apology. You're cleared of all suspicion. He stared at the message. Reinstatement. After everything, they wanted him back, wanted to pretend this morning's resignation had never happened. I don't want to be reinstated. I quit, I know. But you deserve to have the option. And you deserve to have your reputation cleared publicly. What about you? What about me? Are you okay? The question seemed to surprise her. 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times before her response came through. No, but I will be. Focus on your daughter. We'll handle the rest. Emma had fallen asleep against his chest, exhausted by fear and confusion, and the simple weight of being 6 years old in a situation she couldn't understand. Lucas held her carefully, afraid to move and wake her, while the security guards maintained their silent vigil and the hospital hummed with its nighttime rhythms around them. His borrowed phone buzzed again. Not Evelyn this time. A news alert. Breaking. Heart Technologies CEO announces major internal investigation following infrastructure sabotage. The story was already spreading. By morning, it would be everywhere. Business news, tech blogs, probably even mainstream media. The thing Evelyn had worried about, the publicity nightmare the board had wanted to avoid, was happening anyway. But maybe that was good. Maybe public scrutiny would protect them better than private security. Maybe Marcus and Holbrook would think twice about escalating if the whole world was watching. Or maybe it would make them more desperate. Lucas shifted carefully, trying not to wake Emma, and settled in for what he knew would be a long night. Outside the window, Denver was dark and quiet under its blanket of snow. The storm had passed, leaving everything clean and still and deceptively peaceful. But inside this hospital room, inside this conspiracy, inside the wreckage of the life Lucas had been living, nothing was peaceful yet. The truth was coming out, evidence was being gathered, charges were being prepared, and somewhere out there 2 men who'd tried to destroy him were planning their next move. Emma slept fitfully and through the night, waking every hour or so with small whimpers that had Lucas instantly alert, checking her temperature, adjusting blankets, murmuring reassurances until she drifted off again. The security guards changed shifts at midnight, professional handoff with minimal conversation, and the police officer outside the door was replaced by a younger woman who introduced herself as Officer Martinez and promised to stay until morning. Lucas didn't sleep at all. He sat in the uncomfortable hospital chair with his laptop balanced on his knees, borrowed phone within reach, watching the door and periodically checking Emma's monitors. The IV drip caught the light each time he moved. Outside, Denver stayed dark and silent under its layer of snow. Around 3 in the morning, the borrowed phone buzzed. Evelyn. Still awake? Yeah. You? Board meeting just ended. Lasted 6 hours. They want a full forensic audit, external investigators, the whole process. Good. Marcus's lawyer sent a cease and desist, threatened defamation suit if we proceed with criminal allegations. Lucas felt his jaw tighten. Of course he did. Our legal team says it's posturing. The evidence is strong enough that no court would consider it defamation. But it means this is going to get ugly. It was already ugly. True. A pause. How's Emma? Lucas looked at his daughter, small form curled under hospital blankets, Breathing steady but still too fast, still fighting off infection. Stable, scared when she's awake. The doctor says we can probably go home tomorrow afternoon if her fever stays down. That's good. And the security situation? Professional. Maybe overkill, but I'm not complaining. It's not overkill. These people threatened your daughter. They're desperate and dangerous, and we don't know what they're capable of. Lucas shifted in the chair, trying to find a position that didn't make his back ache. 3 hours of sleep in the last 48 hours was catching up with him. Have the police found anything? Any connection between the threats and Marcus or Holbrook? Not yet. But they're working on it. They seized both their personal phones, computers, pulled financials. If there's evidence, they'll find it. And if there isn't, then we still have the sabotage charges. Industrial espionage, fraud, conspiracy. That's 20 years minimum if convicted. That's if they're convicted. Rich guys with expensive lawyers have a way of walking. Not this time. Evelyn's text carried a determination that made it feel almost like he could hear her voice. I'm making this right, Lucas. Whatever it takes. He wanted to believe her. Wanted to trust that justice would actually work the way it was supposed to. That the evidence would be enough. That money and power wouldn't somehow twist the outcome. But he'd seen too much already. Systems failing, people betraying, the world operating on rules that had nothing to do with fairness. Get some sleep, he typed. You've been going nonstop for 24 hours. So have you. I'm watching my daughter. You're running a company in crisis, different stakes, both important. Another pause. Lucas, I meant what I said earlier. About changing things. When this settles, I want you to consult on building better systems. Not infrastructure systems. People systems. Policies that protect employees instead of exploiting them. I told you I'm done. I know. But think about it. You don't have to decide now. The conversation ended. Lucas set the phone down and closed his eyes, just for a moment, just to rest them. When he opened them again, pale gray light was seeping through the window, and Emma was awake, watching him. You fell asleep, she said quietly. Just for a minute. It's morning. He checked his watch. 6:47. He'd been out for almost 3 hours, slumped in the chair with his laptop still balanced on his knees. His neck screamed in protest when he tried to move. How you feeling? He asked. Hungry, and I have to pee. Normal kid concerns. Lucas helped her to the bathroom, IV pole rolling alongside, then called for a nurse to check her vitals. Temperature was down to 99.2, oxygen saturation normal. The infection was losing its grip. Doctor will be by around 9 to assess discharge, the nurse said, making notes on a tablet. If everything looks good, you can probably go home this afternoon. Emma's face lit up. Really? Really? But you'll need to rest at home, finish your antibiotics, no running around for a few days. I promise. The nurse smiled and left. Emma immediately started planning her homecoming, which movies to watch, which stuffed animals to sleep with, what she wanted for dinner. Lucas listened and nodded, grateful for her resilience, for the way kids could bounce back from fear once the immediate danger passed. One of the security guards stepped into the doorway. Mr. Bennett? Someone from the DA's office is here, says she needs to speak with you about the investigation. Lucas glanced at Emma, who was now absorbed in choosing between two equally beloved stuffed animals. Can it wait until she's distracted? I can arrange for a child life specialist to come hang out with her for a bit. Let you talk privately. 10 minutes later, Emma was engrossed in a board game with a cheerful young woman who specialized in keeping hospitalized kids occupied, and Lucas was in a small conference room down the hall with Assistant District Attorney Jennifer Wu and 2 investigators from the Cybercrimes Unit. We've been reviewing the evidence your CEO provided, Wu said, spreading documents across the table. She was maybe 40, sharp-eyed, with the no-nonsense demeanor of someone who'd prosecuted a lot of cases and won most of them. It's compelling, very compelling, but I need to hear your side directly. Lucas walked her through everything, the system he'd built, the proposals he'd blocked, the pattern of sabotage, the probe attempts, the catastrophic failure that morning. He explained the technical details in language she could understand, showed her the deprecated command flags, the IP address evidence, the timeline that proved premeditation. Wu took notes, asked pointed questions, occasionally conferred with the investigators. One of them, a gray-haired man introduced as Detective Kovacs, seemed particularly interested in the threatening texts. These came from a burner phone, Kovac said, showing Lucas printouts of the messages. Purchased with cash at a convenience store in Boulder 3 days ago. No surveillance footage. The camera system was down for maintenance. Convenient. Very. But the phone's been traced. It pinged off towers near both Marcus Reeves's residence and Richard Holbrook's office in the hours before the threats were sent. So they were together. Or they were both in the same general area. It's not proof of coordination, but it's suggestive. Kovac leaned forward. Mr. Bennett, I need to be straight with you. The sabotage case is solid. We have evidence, motive, opportunity. The DA can prosecute that and likely win. But the threats against your daughter, that's harder. Without a direct link to Reeves or Holbrook, without the actual phone in someone's possession, it's circumstantial. So they get away with threatening a 6-year-old. I didn't say that. I said it's harder. But we're working multiple angles, phone records, financial transactions, any communication between them that shows planning. He glanced at Wu, who nodded slightly. We're also looking at plea deals. If one of them flips, testifies against the other, we might get the full story. Who's more likely to flip? Reeves is younger, less established, more to lose. Holbrook's got 20 years in the industry, probably has enough saved to retire comfortably even if he's convicted. My money's on Reeves cracking first. Wu closed her notebook. Mr. Bennett, I want to be clear about what happens next. We're filing formal charges this morning: conspiracy to commit fraud, industrial sabotage, unauthorized access to computer systems. Both defendants will be arraigned within 48 hours. They'll likely post bail, which means they'll be out pending trial. Lucas felt his stomach drop. They threatened my daughter and you're letting them walk? We're setting conditions. No contact orders, ankle monitors, surrender of passports. If they violate any conditions, they go back in immediately. Her expression softened slightly. I understand your concern. I have kids too, but legally, they're entitled to bail unless we can prove their flight risks or immediate dangers. They already proved their immediate dangers. Alleged threats from an untraceable phone isn't enough for a judge to deny bail on a white-collar case. I'm sorry. It's not fair, but it's the reality. Lucas stood, needing to move, to do something other than sit there accepting that the people who'd tried to destroy him would be free to try again. So what am I supposed to do? Just hope they don't escalate. You maintain security. You document any contact or suspicious activity. You let us build the case. Wu stood as well. Mr. Bennett, I know this feels insufficient, but we're going to prosecute this aggressively. These men are going to face consequences. It just takes time. He wanted to argue, to demand better protection, faster justice, something more than vague reassurances and legal process. But he could see in her face that she was already doing everything the system allowed. How long until trial? He asked. 6 months minimum, maybe longer if there are delays. 6 months of looking over my shoulder. 6 months of building an airtight case that puts them away for years. Wu gathered her documents. In the meantime, you're the victim here. The state is representing your interests, and I promise you we're taking this seriously. She left with the investigators, leaving Lucas alone in the conference room. He sat there for a long moment, processing. 6 months. Half a year of living in limbo, of wondering if every stranger was a threat, of Emma growing up scared because her father had made enemies of dangerous men. When he returned to Emma's room, she was laughing at something the child life specialist had said, her whole face bright with the kind of uncomplicated joy that kids could access even in hospitals. The security guards were still there, still professional and vigilant, and Officer Martinez was still outside the door. All good? One of the guards asked quietly. As good as it's going to be? Emma noticed him. Daddy, Sarah says I'm really good at this game. I beat her twice. That's because you're smart, baby. Sarah, the child life specialist, packed up the game with practiced efficiency. I'll check in this afternoon, see how she's doing. After she left, Emma turned to Lucas with sudden seriousness. Are the bad people going to jail? He sat on the edge of her bed. Yeah, eventually. It just takes time. How much time? A while. But until then, we're going to be safe. We have people protecting us. She looked at the security guards, then back at him. I don't want people protecting us forever. I want things to be normal again. I know, me too. When will it be normal? Lucas didn't have an answer for that. Normal had died the moment he chose to resign, or maybe years before when Sarah died, or maybe it had never existed at all and they'd just been pretending. Soon, he said, because she needed to hear something hopeful. The doctor arrived at 9:30, examined Emma thoroughly, reviewed her charts, and pronounced her well enough to go home with a prescription for oral antibiotics and strict instructions about rest and follow-up appointments. Emma practically vibrated with excitement while a nurse removed the IV and processed discharge paperwork. "You'll need to come back in 3 days for a recheck," the doctor said to Lucas. "And if her fever spikes again or she has any breathing difficulties, bring her straight to the ER. Don't wait." "I won't." By 11, they were dressed and packed, Emma clutching a stuffed bear the hospital had given her, Lucas carrying the bag of belongings he'd thrown together that first frantic morning. The security guards had already coordinated transportation, a discreet SUV with tinted windows, driver who'd been background checked and cleared. Evelyn was waiting in the hospital lobby, looking exhausted but determined. She'd clearly been awake all night too, maybe longer. "How is she?" Evelyn asked, kneeling to Emma's level. "Better? We get to go home." "That's wonderful." She looked up at Lucas. "I arranged for security at your apartment. 2 guards, 24-hour rotation. They'll stay until the threat is resolved." "You don't have to I do. And I am." Her tone left no room for argument. "These men went after you because of my company. The least I can do is make sure you're protected." Emma tugged on Lucas's hand. "Can we go now? I want my own bed." The drive home was quiet. Emma dozing against Lucas's shoulder while he watched the city pass by the tinted windows. Denver looked different now. The snow starting to melt in patches, life resuming after the storm, people going about their normal routines while Lucas's world remained fractured. The apartment felt smaller than he remembered, cramped and cold despite the heating system finally working. 2 new security guards introduced themselves, professional, ex-military, the kind of competent that made Lucas feel both safer and more aware of how much danger they were in. Emma went straight to her room, emerging minutes later with arms full of stuffed animals and immediately setting up an elaborate tea party on the living room floor. Lucas watched her play. This small person who'd been so sick just hours ago, now completely absorbed in making her toys talk to each other. His phone, his actual phone, returned by police that morning, buzzed with a news alert. The story was everywhere now, major outlets picking it up, tech blogs dissecting the conspiracy, social media lighting up with hot takes and speculation. Hart Technologies stock had dropped 18% at opening, another alert. Marcus Reeves and Richard Holbrook had been arraigned. Both posted bail. Both released with conditions. Lucas felt his chest tighten. They were out, walking free. Probably in their own homes right now, plotting their next move or coordinating with lawyers or... "Mr. Bennett?" One of the security guards appeared in the doorway. "Someone's here to see you. Says her name is Evelyn Hart." Emma looked up from her tea party. "The nice lady from the hospital?" "Yeah, baby. I'll be right back." Evelyn was standing in the building's entrance, snow melting off her coat, looking uncertain in a way he'd never seen before. The CEO who commanded boardrooms and drove through blizzards and made snap decisions that affected hundreds of employees. She looked lost. "They made bail," she said without preamble. "I saw. I tried to get the DA to fight it, but legally, I know, it's fine." "It's not fine." She stepped closer, voice dropping. "Lucas, they're going to come after you. Maybe not physically, but legally, financially, reputationally. They'll drag this out, make it expensive and exhausting, try to break you before trial. So what am I supposed to do?" "Let me help. Legal fees, security costs, whatever you need, the company will cover it." He almost laughed. "The company that I quit? That tried to arrest me yesterday?" "The company that owes you everything." She met his eyes. "You built our infrastructure. You uncovered the conspiracy. You're the reason we're not completely destroyed right now. So yes, the company is going to support you through this." Lucas looked back toward his apartment, where Emma was playing and security guards were positioning themselves, and his life was unrecognizable. "I don't want your money, Evelyn. I want my daughter to be safe, and my reputation to be clear, and this whole nightmare to be over." "Then let me help make that happen." Before he could respond, his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, then thought of the burner phone threats and picked up. Mr. Bennett, female voice, professional. This is Amanda Reeves, Marcus's wife. Lucas's grip tightened on the phone. I have nothing to say to you. Please just listen. I know what Marcus did. I've known for months that something wasn't right. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the way he'd get defensive when I asked questions. Her voice cracked. I found emails on his laptop, communications with Richard Holbrook about the sabotage, about framing you, about everything. He pulled the phone away from his ear, put it on speaker so Evelyn could hear. Why are you telling me this? Because I have kids too, 2 girls, 8 and 10. And when I saw the news, saw that Marcus threatened your daughter, she was crying now. I can't be married to someone who would do that. I won't be. Mrs. Reeves, I'm sending you the emails, everything I found, and I'm calling the DA's office to give a statement. Marcus doesn't know yet. He's with his lawyer planning his defense, but he's going to know soon, and he's going to be furious, so you need to be careful. Why are you doing this? Because it's the right thing, and because my daughters need to see that when someone does something wrong, there are consequences, even if that someone is their father. The call ended. Lucas stared at the phone, mind racing. A moment later, an email arrived. Forwarded messages between Marcus and Holbrook, dates and timestamps proving coordination, explicit discussions of sabotaging the infrastructure and framing Lucas for negligence. Proof. Undeniable documented proof. She just handed us the case, Evelyn said quietly. With these emails, there's no defense. Marcus and Holbrook are done. Lucas forwarded the emails to Detective Kovach and ADA Wu, then looked at Evelyn. His wife just destroyed him. She chose her kids over her husband's crimes. Same choice you made choosing Emma over your career. That's not the same thing. Isn't it? You both looked at an impossible situation and chose what mattered most. Evelyn's expression was complicated, something between respect and envy. Most people can't do that. They rationalize, they compromise, they tell themselves it'll work out somehow. But you didn't. Neither did she. Emma appeared in the apartment doorway, stuffed bear clutched in one hand. Daddy, I'm hungry. The simple domestic request pulled him back from the edge of the conspiracy, the threats, the weight of everything that had happened. His daughter was hungry. Normal kid problem with a normal solution. Let me make you lunch, he said. Evelyn stepped back. I should go. Let you have some family time. Wait. Lucas wasn't sure why he stopped her. Do you want to stay for lunch? Nothing fancy, just sandwiches or whatever, but she looked surprised, then uncertain, then something that might have been grateful. I'd like that. Emma led them inside, chattering about her tea party and which stuffed animal had been the most polite guest. Lucas made grilled cheese sandwiches while Evelyn sat at the small kitchen table, looking completely out of place in her expensive coat surrounded by worn furniture and children's toys. I've never done this, she said quietly while Emma was distracted arranging plates. Done what? Had lunch at someone's home, just casual, normal. She picked at a napkin. 15 years building a company, and I've never been invited to an employee's house. Never had a meal that wasn't a business dinner or networking event. That's depressing. That's what I chose. She watched Emma carefully positioning forks. I told myself relationships were a distraction, that personal connections made you weak, that the only thing that mattered was the work. And now I'm 30 years old, and my closest relationship is with my assistant, who's paid to tolerate me. Lucas set sandwiches on plates, cut Emma's into triangles the way she liked. You showed up at my apartment in a blizzard. Drove my daughter to the hospital. Fought your own board to protect me. Those aren't the actions of someone who doesn't know how to connect. Those are the actions of someone trying to fix what she broke. Maybe, but you're here now, having lunch, being normal. He handed her a plate. That's a start. They ate quietly, Emma providing running commentary on her morning and her stuffed animals, and approximately 17 other topics in the space of 10 minutes. Evelyn listened with what seemed like genuine interest, asking questions, laughing at Emma's observations about which foods should definitely be able to talk, if toys could. Lucas's phone buzzed. Detective Kovach. Got the emails from Mrs. Reeves. This is exactly what we needed. DA is filing additional charges. Conspiracy, obstruction, perjury. Both defendants are looking at serious time now. How long until they know? Their lawyers probably already do. We had to notify them of new evidence. Expect them to get aggressive. Lucas set the phone down. Evelyn raised an eyebrow. They know about the emails, he said quietly. Her expression darkened. So they're going to panic. Desperate people do stupid things. Hence, the security guards. Emma had finished her sandwich and was already asking if she could watch a movie. Lucas got her settled on the couch with a blanket and her favorite animated film, then returned to the kitchen where Evelyn was clearing plates. You don't have to do that, he said. I know, but I want to help. She rinsed a plate, set it in the dish rack. Lucas, I need to ask you something. Okay. When this is over, when Marcus and Holbrook are convicted and the threat is gone and everything settles, would you consider coming back? Not to your old position, something different, chief technology officer maybe, or a VP role where you're setting strategy instead of implementing it. I quit, I know, but people change their minds. Circumstances change, and I think you could help me rebuild what we're about to lose. Lucas leaned against the counter. You're about to lose a lot? Clients are already jumping ship. Stock price is tanking. Employees are panicking about job security. This conspiracy is going to cost us tens of millions of dollars, maybe more. She dried her hands on a towel. But it's also an opportunity to rebuild correctly this time, to create something that doesn't destroy the people who work for it. That's idealistic. So is starting a tech company at 22 with no funding and no connections. I've done impossible things before. And you want me to help. I want you to lead it. Culture change, policy reform, building systems that protect people instead of exploiting them. She met his eyes. You'd have full authority, unlimited budget, and my complete support. Whatever you need to make it work. He wanted to say no immediately, to shut down the conversation before it went further. But something stopped him. Maybe curiosity about what a company could look like if it actually prioritized people. Maybe the challenge of building something better. Maybe just the recognition that Emma would need financial security and Lucas was currently unemployed with no prospects. I'll think about it, he said. That's all I'm asking. They finished cleaning up in comfortable silence. Evelyn checked her phone, frowned at whatever she saw, started typing a response. Lucas watched Emma watch her movie, her eyes already heavy with exhaustion despite sleeping most of the morning. I should go, Evelyn said. Let you rest, but call me if you need anything at all. Thank you, for lunch, for everything. She paused at the door. Thank you for letting me in. I know I don't deserve, but... Stop. Lucas cut her off. You drove through a blizzard to save my daughter. You fought your own company to protect me. You're trying to rebuild an entire corporate culture because you saw what it did to people. You deserve a lot more credit than you're giving yourself. Her eyes were bright with something that might have been tears, but she blinked it away and nodded. Then she was gone, leaving Lucas alone with Emma and the security guards in the strange quiet of afternoon settling over the apartment. Emma fell asleep halfway through her movie. Lucas carried her to her room, tucked her into her own bed for the first time in what felt like forever, and stood there watching her breathe. No fever, no distress, just a kid sleeping in her own space, safe and healing. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. You think you won? This isn't over, not even close. Lucas screenshot it, forwarded it to Kovac and the security guards, then blocked the number. Let them send threats. Let them rage against the consequences closing in. He'd made his choice, Emma over everything, and no amount of intimidation would change that. One of the security guards appeared in the doorway. Everything okay? Another threat. I forwarded it to the detective. We'll increase patrols, and I'd recommend you stay inside for the next few days. Let things cool down. Lucas looked at Emma, peaceful in sleep, then back at the guard. How long until the trial? Months? Maybe 6, maybe more. So 6 months of hiding. 6 months of staying smart. The guard's expression was kind but firm. These guys are cornered now. The wife flipping, the evidence piling up. They've got nothing to lose. That makes them dangerous. More dangerous than threatening a 6-year-old? Different dangerous, unpredictable. He moved back toward the door. But we've got you covered. Just don't take unnecessary risks. After he left, Lucas sat on the floor beside Emma's bed and pulled out his laptop. The work Evelyn had sent him, documentation of the system failures, analysis of the sabotage, timelines and evidence logs, sat in his inbox waiting to be reviewed. He told himself he was done with the company, done with the case, done with everything except focusing on Emma. But maybe helping ensure Marcus and Holbrook actually faced consequences was part of protecting her. Maybe making sure the evidence was airtight, the prosecution was strong, the case was unbeatable. Maybe that was the best security he could provide. He opened the files and started reading. Hours passed. Emma woke up once, disoriented and thirsty, and Lucas got her water and settled her back to sleep. The security guards changed shifts. Evening arrived with gray light and the sound of snow starting to melt off the roof. Lucas kept reading, kept finding patterns, kept building the narrative that would put two dangerous men away for years. His phone rang around 8. Evelyn. "The board just voted," she said. "We're cooperating fully with the prosecution, providing all resources, all documentation, whatever they need." "Good. And they approved my proposal, complete culture overhaul. New policies on work-life balance, mandatory time off, elimination of performance metrics based on hours worked." She sounded energized, determined, starting with the engineering department. "Your department." "It's not my department anymore." "It could be, if you wanted." Lucas looked at Emma's closed door, at the security guards in his living room, at the evidence files still open on his laptop. "Ask me again when the trial's over." "Deal." A pause. "Lucas? Yeah? Thank you for not giving up, for fighting back, for showing me what actually matters." The call ended before he could respond. Lucas closed his laptop and sat in the quiet, processing everything that had happened in less than 48 hours. He'd resigned from a job, saved his daughter's life, uncovered a conspiracy, become a target, and somehow ended up having lunch with a CEO who was trying to become a better person. And through all of it, Emma had stayed at the center. His reason for quitting, his reason for fighting, his reason for everything. He checked on her one more time, still sleeping, still healing, still his whole world, then settled onto the couch for another night of broken sleep and vigilance and waiting for whatever came next. 3 weeks crawled past like months. Emma recovered fully, her fever fading into memory, her energy returning in bursts that had her running circles around the apartment until the security guards gently reminded her to keep the noise down. Lucas watched her heal and tried to figure out what normal was supposed to look like now. The apartment felt smaller with 2 armed guards rotating through 12-hour shifts. They were professional, unobtrusive, but their presence was a constant reminder that somewhere out there, Marcus and Holbrook were free on bail, waiting for trial, maybe planning something Lucas couldn't predict. The threats had stopped after that last text. Either the police presence had scared them off or they'd gotten smarter about covering their tracks. Lucas didn't know which possibility worried him more. He'd started consulting for Evelyn remotely, not on infrastructure, but on the culture reforms she'd promised. Policy documents about work-life balance, guidelines for managers on respecting boundaries, metrics that measured output instead of hours logged. It felt strange being paid to dismantle the same toxic systems he'd survived for 3 years, but it also felt necessary, like he was building something that might actually protect the next person who ended up in his position. Emma was in the kitchen making lunch. Sandwiches she insisted on preparing herself, even though this mostly meant using far too much peanut butter and forgetting the jelly, when Lucas's phone rang. Detective Kovacs. "We got him," Kovacs said without preamble. Holbrook flipped. Full confession in exchange for reduced charges. He gave us everything, the planning, the execution, the threats, all of it. Lucas felt something unlock in his chest. What about Marcus? Going down hard. With Holbrook's testimony and the emails from his wife, we've got him on conspiracy, sabotage, fraud, terroristic threatening. The DA's offering 23 years. Will he take it? His lawyer's trying to negotiate, but we're not budging. He goes to trial, he's looking at 30 minimum. He'll take the deal. Lucas sat down heavily. 23 years. Marcus would be in his 50s when he got out, his career destroyed, his family fractured, everything he'd schemed for turned to ash. When? Lucas asked. Plea hearing is scheduled for next week. Barring any last-minute complications, this is over. Over. The word felt foreign. 3 weeks of looking over his shoulder, of jumping at unexpected sounds, of Emma asking why they still had guards at the door. and now it was just over. Thank you, Lucas said, for everything. Thank the wife. Without those emails, this would have been a much harder case. Kovac paused. She's filing for divorce, by the way, taking the kids and moving to her parents' place in Oregon, starting over. After the call ended, Lucas sat there processing. It was done. The conspiracy exposed, the conspirators caught, justice actually working the way it was supposed to. He should feel relief, maybe even triumph. Instead, he just felt tired. Emma appeared with a plate containing what could generously be called a sandwich, 2 pieces of bread holding roughly a cup of peanut butter and maybe 3 jelly molecules. I made lunch, she announced proudly. I can see that. Are you going to eat it? He took a bite, the peanut butter immediately cementing his mouth shut. Emma watched him struggle to chew, completely oblivious to the structural problems with her creation. It's perfect, he managed. I know. She settled beside him on the couch, her own sandwich equally disastrous. Daddy? Yeah, baby? When can the security people leave? Soon, really soon. Good. I like them, but I want it to be just us again. Just us. The words hit harder than they should have. For 3 years, it had been him and work and Emma as an afterthought. Now she wanted just us, and Lucas was finally in a position to give her that. His phone buzzed. Evelyn. Heard about Holbrook. Congratulations. This calls for celebration. Not sure what there is to celebrate. 2 lives destroyed, a company in chaos, justice served, truth exposed. You and Emma safe. That's worth celebrating. Maybe. Lunch tomorrow? Real restaurant this time, not my kitchen or hospital cafeteria. Lucas looked at Emma, absorbed in her structural engineering disaster of a sandwich. A real restaurant, normal activity, moving forward instead of hiding. Emma comes too. Obviously. I'll pick somewhere kid-friendly. Noon? Deal. The next day arrived with actual sunshine, the kind of bright Colorado winter day that made everything look clean and new. Lucas dressed Emma in her favorite outfit, purple dress with sparkles that she'd outgrown slightly but refused to give up, and himself in something that wasn't rumpled from sleeping in a chair. The security guards had already been notified that their services would end that evening once the plea deal was officially signed. They looked relieved. 3 weeks of watching nothing happen had probably been incredibly boring for professionals used to actual action. Evelyn picked them up in her SUV, the same one she'd driven through the blizzard, now clean and polished and completely non-dramatic. Emma climbed into the back seat, chattering immediately about the restaurant and what she hoped they'd have, and whether dessert was included. I like her energy, Evelyn said quietly to Lucas as she drove. She's been cooped up for 3 weeks. This is her being civilized. If this is civilized, what's her chaos mode? You don't want to know. They ended up at a family place that specialized in burgers and had crayons on every table. Emma immediately claimed the crayons and started drawing while Lucas and Evelyn looked at menus they both already knew they weren't going to stray from: burger and fries, the universal default. The board approved the full culture reform package this morning, Evelyn said once they'd ordered. Every policy you drafted, starting implementation across all departments next month. That's fast. We don't have time to be slow. We lost 40% of our clients in 3 weeks. Stock price is still tanking. Employees are fleeing to competitors. She picked at her napkin. But the ones who stayed? They're energized. They actually believe things might change. Things will change. Whether it's enough is a different question. Optimistic as always. Realistic. Lucas watched Emma color an elaborate scene involving what appeared to be a dragon and a castle and maybe a spaceship. You can change policies all you want, but culture runs deeper than paperwork. It's in how managers treat people when deadlines hit, how executives talk about productivity, what gets rewarded and what gets punished. So how do we change that? Time, consistency, leadership actually walking the talk instead of just talking it. He met her eyes, and accepting that some people won't change. They'll resist, undermine, wait for things to go back to normal. You'll have to fire them. Evelyn nodded slowly. I've already started. 3 executives who fought the reforms. 2 managers who retaliated against employees for using the new PTO policies. Her expression was grim. Turns out when you actually enforce boundaries, you discover who was benefiting from there being none. Their food arrived. Emma attacked her chicken fingers with the enthusiasm of someone who'd been living on hospital food and homemade sandwiches for weeks. Lucas ate slowly, watching Evelyn pick at her burger. "You okay?" he asked. "Tired, scared, wondering if I'm destroying the company I spent 15 years building." "You're not destroying it. You're saving it from itself." "Same thing, maybe." Emma looked up from her coloring. "Why are you sad?" Evelyn blinked, surprised at being addressed. "I'm not sad, sweetheart. Just thinking about work stuff. Work stuff makes everybody sad. That's why Daddy quit." The simple observation from a 6-year-old cut through every complicated justification. Work stuff makes everybody sad. Not challenged, not fulfilled, not rewarded, just sad. "You're right," Evelyn said quietly. "It does. And that's what we're trying to fix." "Can you fix it?" "I'm going to try." Emma seemed satisfied with this and went back to her drawing. Lucas caught Evelyn's expression, something between determination and despair, the look of someone who'd finally seen a problem clearly and wasn't sure they could solve it. They finished lunch with easier conversation. Emma told stories about her stuffed animals with the kind of elaborate backstory that suggested she'd been spending a lot of time alone with her imagination. Evelyn listened with what seemed like genuine interest, asking questions, laughing at the ridiculous parts. When they left, Emma hugged Evelyn spontaneously, the way kids did when they decided someone was safe. Evelyn looked startled, then carefully hugged back, her expression complicated. "Thank you for lunch," Emma said formally, "and for saving us in the snow." "You're welcome, sweetheart." The drive home was quiet, Emma dozing in the back seat, Lucas watching the city pass by the window. Denver looked normal again. Traffic, people, life resuming. Like the last 3 weeks had been a fever dream that only affected him. "Lucas?" Evelyn's voice was soft, like she didn't want to wake Emma. "I need to tell you something." "Okay." "I'm stepping down as CEO." He looked at her sharply. "What?" "Not immediately. 6 months, maybe a year. Long enough to implement the reforms and find a replacement. But I can't keep doing this." She kept her eyes on the road. 15 years of sacrificing everything for the company. Relationships, health, any kind of life outside of quarterly earnings. I told myself it was worth it because we were building something important. But Emma's right. Work stuff makes everybody sad. And I don't want to be sad anymore. "What will you do?" "I don't know. Travel, maybe. Take classes in something impractical. Learn to cook. Make friends who aren't employees or investors." She laughed quietly. "Basically, figure out how to be a person instead of just a CEO." "That's brave." "That's terrifying. But watching you choose Emma over everything, that was brave. This is just me finally catching up." They pulled up to Lucas's building. The security guards were already packing up, their shift ending now that the threat had been officially neutralized. Emma woke up, groggy and complaining about having to leave the warm car. "Think about the CTO offer," Evelyn said as Lucas unbuckled Emma. "Not forever, just for the transition. Help me build the foundation, then hand it off to someone else. Year commitment maximum." "I'll think about it. That's all I'm asking." Inside the apartment, without security guards for the first time in weeks, the space felt bigger and smaller simultaneously. Bigger because they had it to themselves again. Smaller because Lucas suddenly had to figure out what normal looked like without the structure of work or the urgency of crisis. Emma solved this problem by immediately demanding they build a blanket fort, and for the next 2 hours, Lucas found himself arranging furniture and draping sheets and trying to remember the last time he'd actually played with his daughter, instead of just existing near her while working. They ate dinner inside the fort, pizza delivery because Lucas wasn't ready to tackle actual cooking yet. Emma told him about what she wanted to be when she grew up, a list that changed every 3 minutes and included astronaut, veterinarian, and someone who names paint colors. "That's a real job?" Lucas asked. "It has to be. Someone makes up agreeable gray and sea salt. That's someone's job, and I want it." After dinner, after bath time, after the elaborate bedtime routine that Emma had somehow extended to 45 minutes through pure negotiation skills, Lucas sat on the edge of her bed. "Daddy?" "Yeah, baby?" "Are things going to be different now? Like really different?" He thought about the question. Different from what? From the 3 years of barely seeing each other? From the 3 weeks of living in fear? From the lifetime before Sarah died when things had seemed stable and predictable? Yeah, he said. Things are going to be different. Good different? I think so. I'm going to be home more, work less. We'll do stuff together. Regular stuff, fun stuff. Whatever you want. Emma was quiet for a moment. Can we get a dog? Lucas almost laughed. Of course, that's where her mind went. Maybe. We'll see. That's what you always say when you mean no. That's what I say when I mean we'll actually see. We're in an apartment, we'd need permission from the landlord, and dogs are a lot of responsibility. I'm responsible. You are. But let me think about it, okay? She yawned, eyes already heavy. Okay, but think fast because I really want a dog. I'll think at medium speed. She giggled, then was asleep within minutes, the way kids could just shut down when exhaustion hit. Lucas sat there watching her breathe, this small person who'd almost been taken from him by fever and fear and the consequences of choices he'd made years ago. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number made his heart race until he opened it and saw it was from Amanda Reeves. I wanted you to know Marcus signed the plea deal today. 23 years. The girls and I are moving to Oregon next week, starting over. Thank you for not hating us. Lucas stared at the message. Hating them hadn't even occurred to him. Amanda and her daughters were victims too, casualties of Marcus's ambition and desperation. They were losing a husband and father to prison, losing their home and stability and any sense of normalcy. I don't hate you. I hope you and your girls find peace. Her response came quickly. I hope the same for you and Emma. The conversation ended. Lucas set his phone down and walked to the window. The city was quiet, lights scattered across the darkness, normal people living normal lives while his world slowly stitched itself back together. Over the next few months, normal became something Lucas had to actively construct instead of passively experience. He took the CTO position Evelyn offered, but on strict terms. 30-hour weeks maximum, no after-hours emails, mandatory PTO that he was required to actually use. The company was struggling, stock price still depressed, clients still wary, but the employees who'd stayed were committed to making the reforms work. Emma started first grade. Lucas dropped her off every morning and picked her up every afternoon, actually present for the small moments he'd missed for years. Parent-teacher conferences, school plays, the elaborate art projects that required parental assistance and resulted in glitter everywhere. They got a dog, a rescue mutt named Biscuit, who was part terrier, part chaos, and entirely Emma's best friend. Walking Biscuit became their evening routine, circling the neighborhood while Emma talked about her day and Lucas listened instead of checking his phone. Evelyn stepped down as CEO after 8 months, exactly as she'd promised. The board brought in an outsider with a background in sustainable business practices and a reputation for prioritizing employee well-being. The stock price stabilized, then slowly started climbing. Clients began returning, attracted by the cultural changes and the story of a company that had survived sabotage and emerged better. Lucas stayed for the year he'd committed to, building systems that protected people instead of exploiting them. Then he resigned again, this time without drama or conspiracy. Just a simple transition to someone younger who believed in the mission. Marcus and Holbrook were both in federal prison, their appeals denied, their careers destroyed. Lucas tried not to think about them. Revenge wasn't satisfying when you saw the collateral damage. Amanda and her daughters rebuilding their lives, Holbrook's wife, who'd stood by him only to be left alone, the ripple effects of choices made in desperation and greed. One Saturday morning, almost a year after the blizzard, Lucas was making pancakes while Emma played with Biscuit in the living room. Sunlight streamed through the windows, the kind of ordinary domestic scene he'd never appreciated before because he'd always been working through it. The doorbell rang. Emma ran to answer it before Lucas could stop her, pulling open the door to reveal Evelyn standing there with coffee and what looked like expensive pastries. "Hi," Emma said. "We're making pancakes, but Daddy's not very good at it." "I heard that," Lucas called from the kitchen. "You were supposed to." Emma let Evelyn in, already reaching for the pastry box. "Are these for us?" "If your dad says it's okay." Lucas emerged from the kitchen, spatula still in hand. "What are you doing here?" "It's Saturday. I was in the neighborhood, thought I'd stop by." Evelyn looked different, Jeans and a sweater instead of business attire, hair down instead of pulled back, more relaxed than he'd ever seen her. "You're never just in the neighborhood." "Okay, fine. I'm taking a cooking class 3 blocks from here and the instructor is terrifying and I needed a break." She held up the pastries. "Peace offering?" Emma had already opened the box. "These are fancy." "You have good taste." Evelyn looked at Lucas. "Can I stay? For breakfast? I promise not to talk about work." He almost said no, almost sent her away because blurring the lines between professional and personal felt complicated. But Emma was already setting an extra plate, and Biscuit was investigating Evelyn with enthusiastic tail wags, and maybe complicated wasn't always bad. "Pancakes will be ready in 5 minutes," he said. "But I'm warning you, Emma's right. I'm not very good at it." They ate breakfast crowded around the small kitchen table, Emma dominating the conversation with stories about school and Biscuit's various adventures and her current plan to become a marine biologist who also painted on weekends. Evelyn listened and asked questions and looked more at ease than Lucas had ever seen her. After breakfast, Emma dragged them both to the living room to show off the blanket fort she'd maintained and upgraded over the past year. It now incorporated 4 chairs, 6 blankets, a string of battery-powered lights, and what appeared to be a structural support system made from broom handles. "This is impressive," Evelyn said, genuinely meaning it. "I know. Daddy helped, but mostly I designed it." She's an engineer," Lucas said, "or an architect. I haven't decided yet." Emma crawled inside the fort. "Come see. There's room for everybody." They ended up sitting cross-legged in a blanket fort, 3 adults and a dog, and a 6-year-old who kept rearranging pillows to optimize comfort. Somewhere in the absurdity of it, Lucas realized he was happy, not distracted or numb or just getting through the day, but actually happy. "I'm glad I stopped by," Evelyn said quietly, while Emma was occupied with Biscuit. "Yeah, me too. I've been thinking about what you said, about culture running deeper than policies, about time and consistency and leadership walking the talk. And I think I needed to learn how to walk before I could teach anyone else." She gestured around the fort. "This, normal life. That's what I was asking employees to prioritize while having no idea how to do it myself. So the cooking class is terrible, and I'm definitely going to fail, but I'm trying." She smiled. "Baby steps toward being a person instead of just a former CEO." Emma emerged from rearranging pillows. "Are you staying for lunch too? We're having sandwiches, but I'm not making them this time because Daddy says my architectural vision exceeds practical functionality." Evelyn looked at Lucas, eyebrow raised. "She uses too much peanut butter," he explained. "There's no such thing as too much peanut butter." "There absolutely is. I have photographic evidence." Evelyn stayed for lunch, then for a walk around the neighborhood with Biscuit pulling at the leash and Emma providing running commentary on every dog they passed. Then for dinner because somehow it was 6 o'clock and they'd spent the entire day just existing together without agenda or purpose beyond being present. After Emma went to bed, Lucas and Evelyn sat on the apartment's small balcony with coffee, watching the city lights flicker in the darkness. "I should probably go," Evelyn said without moving. "Probably. But I don't want to." Lucas looked at her. "Why not?" "Because today was the first day in 15 years I didn't think about work once. Didn't check my phone, didn't strategize, didn't optimize. I just existed. And it was perfect. It was pancakes in a blanket fort. Exactly." She set down her coffee cup. "Lucas, I need to tell you something." "Okay." "I'm not good at this. At personal connections, at relationships, at any of the human stuff that normal people do without thinking about it. I spent so long being the CEO that I forgot how to be anything else." "You're doing fine." "I'm terrified I'm going to screw this up, whatever this is." Lucas was quiet for a moment. "What do you want this to be?" "I don't know. Friendship, maybe? Or whatever comes before friendship when you're basically starting from scratch at human interaction." She looked at him. "I just know that spending time with you and Emma feels right in a way nothing else has in a very long time." He understood that feeling. The past year had been about rebuilding, about learning how to be present instead of just productive, about measuring success in moments instead of metrics. And somehow Evelyn had become part of that rebuilding without either of them quite noticing. "Then keep showing up," he said. for terrible pancakes and blanket forts and whatever else. We'll figure out the rest as we go. That simple? Nothing's simple. But it doesn't have to be complicated either. She smiled, real and unguarded. Okay, I can do that. Months continued to pass, each one easier than the last. Evelyn became a regular presence in their lives. Saturday breakfasts that became a standing tradition, dog walks in the park, movie nights where Emma insisted on princess films, and both adults pretended to be bored while actually getting invested in the plot. Lucas started freelance consulting, building systems for companies that actually wanted to do better instead of just appearing to. The work was interesting, the hours were reasonable, and he could stop whenever Emma needed him. Emma thrived. First grade became second grade. She joined soccer, discovered she hated running, but loved the team aspect, quit soccer and joined art club instead. Her blanket fort evolved into increasingly complex structures that took over half the apartment. Biscuit remained her constant companion, and Lucas's early morning wake-up call. On a Sunday afternoon in late spring, Lucas was grading himself a generous C- on attempted homemade pizza when Emma ran in from the living room where she'd been drawing. "Daddy, can Evelyn come to my birthday party?" Lucas looked up from pizza dough that refused to cooperate. "Of course, I already invited her." "No, I mean, can she help plan it? Because she has good ideas, and you always forget the important stuff." "What important stuff?" "Decorations, good snacks, not just pizza you made yourself." "The pizza's fine." Emma gave him a look that suggested she disagreed but was being polite. "Can she help?" "If she wants to." Emma immediately FaceTimed Evelyn, who answered looking windblown and happy, apparently in the middle of a hike. "Emma, what's up?" "My birthday's in 2 weeks, and Daddy's going to forget the important stuff, so can you help plan it?" "I don't forget important stuff," Lucas protested. Both Emma and Evelyn looked at him with identical expressions of patient disbelief. "I'd love to help plan it," Evelyn said. "What are you thinking? Theme? Activities?" "Space pirates. Obviously, every good party has space pirates." They spent 20 minutes planning while Lucas gave up on the pizza and ordered delivery instead. When Emma finally hung up, she looked satisfied. Evelyn's going to make a treasure map and get a telescope for looking at stars, and she knows where to get dry ice for the punch. Of course she does. She's good at parties, better than you. I'm aware. Emma hugged him suddenly, fierce and unexpected. But you're good at being here. That's more important. The words hit him square in the chest. Good at being here. After 3 years of being absent even when present, after almost losing everything to work and crisis, and his own inability to see what mattered, he was finally good at the one thing that counted. "I love you, baby," he said. "I love you too. Even though your pizza is bad." The birthday party 2 weeks later was exactly as chaotic as 8 7-year-olds plus space pirates plus dry ice could be. Evelyn arrived early to help set up, staying late to help clean up, fitting into the domestic chaos like she'd always belonged there. After the last parent picked up their overstimulated child and Emma crashed hard on the couch, Lucas and Evelyn sat in the kitchen surrounded by paper plates and deflated balloons. "That was exhausting," Evelyn said. "That was successful. Emma had the time of her life." Mission accomplished then. She started gathering trash, moving through his kitchen with the familiarity of someone who'd been there countless times. "Lucas?" "Yeah?" "Thank you." "For what?" "For letting me be part of this. Your life, Emma's childhood, the normal everyday stuff I never knew I was missing." She stopped, trash bag in hand. "A year ago I was stepping down as CEO and terrified I'd have no idea who I was without the job. But being here, with you and Emma, I figured it out." "Yeah, who are you?" "Someone who shows up, who keeps promises, who values moments more than metrics." She smiled. "Someone who makes terrible pizza with you and doesn't mind." "My pizza's not that bad." "Lucas, we ordered delivery halfway through making it." "Fair point." They cleaned in comfortable silence, the kind that only came with time and trust and showing up for each other repeatedly. When the apartment was finally restored to normal, Evelyn grabbed her coat. "Same time next week?" she asked. "Same time next week," Lucas confirmed, but she hesitated at the door. "Actually, I wanted to ask you something." "Okay." "There's this gallery opening Friday night, local artists supposed to be interesting, and I was wondering if you'd want to go. Not as consultants or friends helping friends or any of the other ways we've been carefully not defining this. Just as a date, if you want. Lucas looked at her, this woman who'd driven through a blizzard to save his daughter, who'd fought her own company to protect him, who'd spent a year learning how to be human again alongside him. The answer was obvious. Yeah, he said, I'd like that. Her smile was bright and genuine and nervous. Okay, good, great. I'll text you details. Sounds good. She left and Lucas stood in his quiet apartment processing what had just happened. A date. After a year of careful friendship, of boundaries and caution, and both of them rebuilding their lives separately while somehow doing it together. Emma appeared from the couch, supposedly asleep but clearly having heard everything. Does this mean Evelyn's going to be here even more? She asked. Maybe. Would that be okay? Emma considered this seriously. Is she going to try to be my new mom? No, nobody's replacing your mom, ever. Good, because I miss Mom. Emma's eyes were serious. But I like Evelyn. She's fun, and she listens, and she doesn't make me feel bad for wanting stuff. Then, yeah, she'll probably be around more. Okay, Emma yawned. Can I stay up to watch a movie? It's almost 9. You're exhausted. I'm not exhausted. I'm just resting my eyes while standing up. Lucas laughed and guided her to bed, where she was unconscious within seconds, birthday crown still crooked on her head. He removed it carefully, tucked her in, and sat there watching her breathe like he'd done countless times since that terrible night in the hospital. They'd made it. Through crisis and conspiracy and the hard work of rebuilding a life that actually mattered. Emma was healthy and happy. Lucas had found work that fulfilled him without consuming him. And somehow, unexpectedly, Evelyn had become part of their small family. The gallery opening Friday night was everything Lucas expected. Abstract art he didn't understand, wine that cost too much, people using words like juxtaposition unironically. But Evelyn was there, looking nervous and hopeful, and they spent the evening not looking at art but talking about everything and nothing. Afterward, walking to her car, she took his hand, just reached over and laced their fingers together like it was the most natural thing in the world. This okay? She asked. Yeah, this is good. They stood there in the parking lot, the Denver skyline spread out behind them, and Lucas thought about how far they'd both come. From that blizzard morning when he'd resigned and she'd driven through snow to demand he come back. From hospital rooms and security guards and conspiracy trials. From being broken people pretending they had it all together to being honest people admitting they were still figuring it out. I don't know what I'm doing, Evelyn admitted. With dating, with relationships, with any of this. Neither do I. We'll figure it out together. That simple? Nothing simple, Lucas said, echoing his words from months ago. But it doesn't have to be complicated either. She kissed him, soft and careful and full of possibility. When they pulled apart, she was smiling. Want to get coffee? She asked. There's this place that's open late and makes terrible drinks, but somehow they're perfect. Lead the way. They drove separately but ended up at the same destination, sitting in a corner booth with oversweetened lattes, talking until the place closed and the staff started giving them pointed looks. Then they sat in the parking lot talking more, neither wanting the night to end. Eventually, they said goodnight. Lucas drove home through quiet streets, let himself into the apartment where Emma was asleep and the babysitter was watching television. He paid her, thanked her, then stood in his daughter's doorway watching her breathe. This was what success looked like. Not a corner office or a stock portfolio or working himself to death for someone else's company. This, Emma sleeping safely, a job that fulfilled him, someone who wanted to figure out life alongside him instead of in spite of him. He'd lost almost everything to get here, a career, a salary, 3 years he'd never get back, but what he'd gained was immeasurable. Presence, purpose, the ability to choose what mattered instead of letting other people's priorities consume him. His phone buzzed. Evelyn. Thank you for tonight. I had fun. Me too. Same time next week? How about Tuesday? And Friday? And maybe Monday? Lucas smiled. All of the above. Months became a year, then another. Emma grew taller, smarter, more herself every day. Biscuit remained chaotic and beloved. Lucas's freelance work became a small consulting firm with 3 employees who actually went home at 5 o'clock. Evelyn found her footing in a life that didn't revolve around quarterly earnings, taking classes and volunteering and learning to define success by happiness instead of achievement. They moved slowly, carefully, neither wanting to rush into something that mattered too much to screw up. But they moved forward. Dinners became weekends. Weekends became holidays together. The careful boundaries of early dating gradually dissolving into something deeper and more permanent. On a Saturday morning 2 years after the blizzard, Lucas woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows. Evelyn's bedroom. He'd stayed over after a late dinner that had turned into a later movie that had turned into falling asleep together, talking about everything and nothing. She was already awake, sitting by the window with coffee and a book, looking peaceful. "Morning," he said. "Morning. I made coffee." "You're a miracle worker." She smiled. Emma texted. "Apparently Biscuit ate one of her shoes and she demands justice." Lucas groaned. That dog. She also said, and I quote, "Tell Daddy I'm fine with the babysitter, but he needs to bring back breakfast sandwiches because her cooking is worse than his." "My cooking's gotten better. It's gotten less dangerous. That's different." Evelyn set down her book. "But we should probably head back before the babysitter actually attempts cooking." They drove to Lucas's apartment with breakfast sandwiches from Emma's favorite place. She met them at the door, immediately confiscating the food and providing a detailed report on Biscuit's crimes and the babysitter's attempt to make eggs that looked like alien substances. Later, after the babysitter left and Emma was occupied with her latest blanket fort iteration, Lucas and Evelyn sat on the balcony with more coffee. "I've been thinking," Evelyn said. "Dangerous. Shut up." She nudged him with her shoulder. "I've been thinking about the future, about what I want my life to look like long term." "And?" "And I want this. You, Emma, Biscuit destroying shoes, terrible homemade pizza, Saturday mornings that turn into Saturday afternoons. All of it." Lucas set down his coffee. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I love you, and I love Emma, and I want to be part of your family officially and permanently, if you'll have me." His heart was hammering, but his mind was clear. Emma would need to be part of this decision. "I know. I wouldn't want it any other way." They called Emma out to the balcony. She appeared suspicious immediately. "Am I in trouble?" "No," Lucas said. "But we need to talk to you about something important." Emma looked between them, then her eyes went wide. "Are you getting married?" "Eventually, maybe, if that's okay with you." Evelyn knelt to Emma's level. "But first I wanted to ask if it would be okay if I was around more. Like, living here more. Being part of your family officially." Emma was quiet, thinking it through with the seriousness of someone who'd learned early that change could be scary. "Would you try to replace my mom?" "Never. Your mom will always be your mom. I'm just someone who loves your dad and loves you and wants to be here if you want me here." "Can we still do Saturday pancakes?" "Absolutely." "And you won't make Daddy work all the time again?" "I promise. His job is being your dad first. Everything else second." Emma looked at Lucas. "What do you think?" "I think it's your decision, baby. Whatever you're comfortable with." She thought for another long moment, then nodded. "Okay, but Evelyn has to help with the blanket fort, because Daddy's not good at the structural stuff." "I would be honored to help with blanket fort engineering," Evelyn said solemnly. "Then okay, you can stay." Just like that, with the simple acceptance of a child who'd learned to trust carefully but completely, their family expanded. The practical details took time. Evelyn selling her sterile downtown condo, finding a house big enough for all of them, merging lives that had been separate for so long. But the foundation was solid, built on showing up, keeping promises, choosing presence over productivity. A year later, they got married in the backyard of their new house. Small ceremony with close friends, and Emma serving as both flower girl and wedding coordinator, taking her responsibilities very seriously. Biscuit wore a bow tie and behaved for approximately 6 minutes. Lucas stood at the altar watching Evelyn walk toward him and thought about the journey that had brought them here. From that freezing morning when he'd chosen Emma over everything, to hospital rooms and conspiracy trials, to slowly rebuilt lives that finally fit. They'd both lost so much to get here. Careers, certainty, the people they'd thought they were. But they'd gained something immeasurable. The ability to be present, to choose what mattered, to build lives that made them happy instead of just successful. After the ceremony, after the cake and dancing and Emma's elaborate toast about how Evelyn was okay, even though she still made bad pizza, they stood together watching the sunset over Denver. "No regrets?" Evelyn asked. Lucas thought about it honestly. "Plenty of regrets. 3 years I'll never get back. A career I destroyed. Almost losing Emma because I was too stubborn to see what mattered. But I wouldn't change where we ended up. This." He gestured at the party, at Emma teaching their friends' kids an elaborate game she'd invented, at the life they'd built together. "This was worth every mistake that got us here." Evelyn leaned against him. "I spent 15 years chasing success and measuring worth in quarterly earnings. I thought relationships were distractions, that personal connections made you weak, that the only thing that mattered was the work. And now? Now I know the work doesn't matter if you have no one to share it with. Success doesn't mean anything if you're achieving it alone. And the greatest thing I ever built wasn't a company, it was this family." Emma ran over, dress already grass-stained, flower crown crooked. "Daddy! Evelyn, come dance! It's the good song!" They let her pull them back into the celebration, into the noise and joy and beautiful chaos of life actually lived instead of just survived. Later, much later, after guests had left and Emma had crashed in her new bedroom still wearing her flower crown, Lucas and Evelyn sat on the porch of their new house. "We did it," Evelyn said quietly. "Did what?" "Figured out how to be happy, how to build something that matters, how to choose right even when it's hard." Lucas took her hand. "We're still figuring it out. We'll always be figuring it out." "Yeah, but we're figuring it out together." Inside the house, Biscuit barked at something. Emma called out that she couldn't sleep and needed water. Normal domestic chaos that once would have felt like an interruption, but now felt like life. "I should get her water," Lucas said. "I'll come with you." They stood together, walked inside together, navigated bedtime negotiations and dog chaos together, partners in every sense, in parenting, in building a life, in choosing each other and Emma and this beautiful, complicated, ordinary existence. That night, after Emma was finally asleep and the house was quiet, Lucas stood in his daughter's doorway like he'd done countless times before, watching her breathe, grateful beyond measure that he'd made the choice that mattered when it counted most. The greatest success wasn't building a company or climbing a ladder or proving himself to anyone. It was this: being present, being enough, being the father Emma needed and the partner Evelyn deserved and the person he'd always wanted to be but had been too afraid to try. In the next room, Evelyn was already asleep, peaceful in a way she never had been when they first met. Changed by the same journey that had changed him, from broken people hiding behind work to whole people building something real. Lucas closed Emma's door softly and walked to bed, to his wife, to the life they'd chosen together. Tomorrow, there would be breakfast chaos and work obligations and the endless small moments that made up a life. But tonight, right now, everything was exactly as it should be. Perfect would have been a lie. But this, imperfect, messy, real, was better than perfect ever could have been.